Hey guys, this is part 1 of What if Naruto had Rinne Sharingan and Ophis in High School DxD? Written by Kratos 57. Quick heads up, this is a harem story, so expect some cheesy and lighthearted moments along the way. Also in this fanfic, Tsunade plays the role of Naruto's surrogate mother. So yeah, let's begin. Chapter 1. Rias let out a sensual whimper, encouraging Naruto, who was kissing her collarbone down to her toned stomach. His hands then moved up, groped, and fondled her bountiful watermelons. Fine, growled Naruto internally. His hand then went down, rubbed her plump cheek, grabbing it and pulling her closer, but then didn't go any further. He held his lust back before he committed what would be one of the greatest mistakes of his life: hurting his beloved. Rias, before I do this, I just want to ask, am I worth it? Are you sure you want to lose that to me, Naruto? I love you, I'm obsessed with you. You are the only one I could think of. I want to give you everything I can because you gave everything you could to me, she cried, wrapping her arms around his neck. You saw me for me and accepted even my weirdest tastes. You laughed, cried, and talked with me. You got mad at me, you showed me how beautiful the human world could be, and you gave me everything I have ever wanted, and it is so unfair. Her tiny pinprick tears became waterfalls, cascading from her eyes. You gave me everything, so giving you this is the very least I can do. So I tell you, Uzumaki Naruto, my first love, you may do whatever you want with me. Fulfill your most disgusting and twisted fantasies. Use me in any manner you wish. I won't resist. Use my body as if you'll never see it again. The last part alarmed Naruto to a great deal, such that he froze in shock at the implications. His hair covered his eyes, hiding them from the world as he did something he has done since his childhood or the first time they met. Cry. He stopped the flow of tears to keep the mood from falling apart and gathering his resolve before forcefully pulling her into his chest. He could feel it. An uncontrollable lust was emerging from the depths of his heart. The feelings he held back due to his shinobi duties were making themselves known to the world. Rias could practically feel his desire for her, and so she shivered in delight, excited for what was to come. She watched him wipe away the moisture in his eyes before feeling like a frightened animal. He was hungry, and he would eat her. She could help it but shake more, wanting him, lusting for him. Understood, he whispered hoarsely, knowing that he couldn't do anything that involved devil affairs. He may have had the power, but stepping in would cause Rias problems, and those problems could end up harming their friends. He was extremely capable in combat, but he couldn't be everywhere at the same time. Even if he sent clones, they could still be killed. For her, he was willing to release his seal, and use the power he considered a curse after all. She was far more important than his pathetic little guilt trip and his secrets. Hiding that power wouldn't be an option if she was in danger, yet here he was. He felt the same sense of hopelessness he felt when watching Kakashi fight Zabuza, watching Sakura die, watching Sasuke receive the curse mark, watching Itachi overwhelm Sasuke, fighting Kimimaro, and the list goes on and on. Such was the life of a shinobi after all. This time he wouldn't fail. He would cherish the time he had at that moment, and use it to the best of his abilities. He grabbed her from under her knees, and hoisted her up before slapping her plump posterior, causing her to whimper in discomfort and pleasure. He let go of her and glared, cheek-hurting dominance. On your knees, bitch! I want to see that fine cheek of yours, he commanded, causing her cheeks to redden in embarrassment, but she complied with, yes, my lord. She then shook her cheek, causing it to jiggle and further arouse the boy behind her. Naruto reached out and grabbed her hips. 2 years ago, it had been a solid 3 months since he had arrived. He and Sasuke had found a way to defeat Madara without using their seals, and that resulted in the world being saved from the threat. Or so they thought. There was one key troubling detail about Madara's defeat. Zetsu, Obito along with the bottom half of Madara's body were nowhere to be seen, which set off a bunch of alarms. What could Zetsu be plotting? Was the question that ran through everyone's mind, and that caused great unease. Because of this, the reanimation jutsu was not released so as to not compromise the current security of the world, as it was very weak after going through this war. Sasuke had managed to revive about 12% of the deceased using the chakra Hashirama gave him before he engaged with Madara, which never actually got to be used because Madara quickly overwhelmed him. The chakra Hashirama granted was able to be used as a substitute for his life force, which meant he didn't suffer any recoil from using the outer path. After the deed was done, Naruto and Sasuke began training their new powers in preparation for what Zetsu could be planning, which had the potential to end the world as they knew it. Sasuke mastered his Rinnegan and its unique ability to the point that he could use its abilities while his Rinnegan was in recharge mode. Naruto, on the other hand, mastered the chakra he had gained from Hagoromo's pocket dimension, and as a result, he gained a godlike form where he would glow and stuff, which was pretty new and weird. 6 Paths Chakra Mode. This Naruto never became a golden boy during war, lol. He had the 9 masked beasts. They trained for about a year till an inhumanly beautiful woman, with a Byakugan and a Rinne Sharingan appeared with Zetsu in tow. Her reserves were so immense that when she appeared, the whole world including the non-chakra sensitive civilians felt it. It was like the end of times, the coming of the apocalypse. Panic arose all over the world as she proceeded to destroy one of the lesser countries that sided with Obito during the war with one attack. This told the world that whatever this entity was, it was at the very least tailed beast level, and naturally, Killer Bee was sent in. He did not return. Long story short, the world fell back into turmoil, and Naruto and Sasuke were sent to terminate the threat. The battle between the three was so grand that a large chunk of the Land of Lightning was erased from existence, which angered the woman. She then took to fighting the duo in another dimension. You know what happens in canon except for none of that Zetsu acting like a cheesy villain bullshit. This time Kaguya was the one who explained herself and tried to reason with the two. The two agreed but ended up disagreeing on her approach to dealing with her clanmates. They didn't want to turn everyone in Zetsus. The fight resumed and Naruto and Sasuke were completely outclassed, with their only saving grace being the fact that they were both highly experienced shinobi with various tactics. They managed to defeat Kaguya in a great battle that destroyed the planet in her core dimension. The marks they had been granted by Hagoromo were no longer present because, at the time of Madara's defeat, they were unneeded, so they quietly disappeared. Since Naruto was directly exposed to Hagoromo's chakra, he was able to manifest within him. In the end, they were forced to kill her by combining their powers, and using Yin-Yang release to turn Zetsu into a weapon capable of killing the godlike entity, and it worked. Unfortunately, her sudden death caused her worlds to collapse on themselves, and the chakra released by her corpse definitely didn't help at all. Naruto and Sasuke were sent to the dimension gap afterwards, but their chakra was so low they weren't detected by the entity occupying that space. Or so they thought. They weren't noticed, but that is unimportant right now. Sasuke used his space-time ninjutsu to send him into the United States, leaving himself to perish in the dimension gap. That broke Naruto, making him depressed, but he decided not to let that pull him down. He proceeded to use lightning-based genjutsu to forge Dojutsu scenes, whilst in the States allowing him to build a new life from scratch. There was one problem though. For some reason, he had become 11 years old once more. He didn't lose any of his powers, but his age was a problem for some time until he got used to it. He decided that he needed a new life and also punish himself for his failures by sealing his powers away, making him essentially normal human. Well, as normal as he could be. He was far more durable than the typical human, so he had to avoid situations where a normal human could get hurt to avoid suspicions. Well, saying punishment was a bit much as he felt that he didn't deserve the power he had, and so he took it away from himself. His power was a curse that had a tendency to fail him when it was needed the most, and it had the tendency to take away what was precious to him, and that included his humanity. After all, he didn't wish to be involved with the creatures of this world. They were rather annoying, such as the creatures of myth that attacked him when he landed in Japan. They said something about his chakra, and so he tightened his seal to the point nothing leaked, so he could live in peace. Years passed and his peace continued to this day, where he was okay but plagued by emptiness and loneliness. Thud, he had walked into someone, and said person was on the pavement, with their legs spread revealing rather kinky underwear. His cheeks flushed slightly before looking at the person he had run into. She was gorgeous. No far beyond that, she was in the league of the gods. Gorgeous red hair, even darker than his mother's, blue-green eyes, and unblemished skin. She looked to be of European descent with how she looked. She was dressed in a yellow sundress that had rolled up revealing black, sensual undies. "Oh, I am sorry." He moved to help her up in a fluster and lowered his head, expecting some harsh reprimands, but to his surprise, she gave him a warm smile. "It's okay." She forgave him easily. "You should really watch where you are going next time. Some people won't be as easy about it as me, Kay." "Why, yes," he stuttered, displaying his feelings of shame. The girl placed her hand on his cheek. "Soft, seriously, don't worry about it. We all blunder sometimes." The warmth she displayed caused his lips to twitch upwards as she moved to dust off the dust on the back of her dress. "I gotta run, bye now." She waved as she turned away from the blonde. "Wait, your hair. It's gorgeous." The girl's eyes widened in shock before she broke into a fit of giggles. "Why, thank you." She beamed as she moved to stroke her hair. "I really appreciate it," she continued, giving a pleased and amused smile. "Bye now." She bid him adieu once more and turned away and walked away. "What a strange boy," she giggled as she placed her finger on her chin. "I wonder why he has tattoos on his face though. Is he trying to cause distress in the locals?" she wonders out loud. Naruto's eyes never left the angel's back until she was completely out of view. "Wow." He then began walking once more, absent-mindedly taking a flying from a person he didn't bother to look at, and continued on his not-so-merry way. He had been comforted when in that girl's presence, but now, that she was gone, the world was dark once more. Use me! He cursed under his breath as his steps quickened as drops splattered on the pavement. The sky wasn't getting any darker, nor had the weather forecast hinted towards this rainy day. It wasn't raining. It was his tears. He had to run. He had to get to his sanctuary, where he would be hidden from the world once more. He had only exited his apartment to rush to the convenience store to get groceries and nothing else. He felt like a wanted criminal after all. Everything felt like a trap to him, his tormentors lurking, and so he always took to get supplies in large amounts, mostly through online shopping and the others from the convenience store, so he could stay in his apartment for months at a time. One could ask how he made money. That was simple. He collected ad revenue from his 3 million subscriber YouTube channel with the occasional sponsorship deal. His channel was named Coffin and had a logo that depicted Sasuke's Manjikyu Sharingan. He posted simple solo versus squads gameplay for PUBG Mobile, which earned him a lot of viewers. People in this world were strange, willing to watch things that wouldn't add value to them. He doubted they actually enjoyed his content, but watched just for the sake of it. He enjoyed playing the game, but he never enjoyed watching other people play the game. Oh well, he shrugged as he entered his apartment. His apartment was both a gamer and an otaku's dream come true. In his room was a high-end PC with LED lighting and a glowing mouse and keyboard, and in the living room, or kitchen, he had a reasonably sized television. Under said television were several different consoles, with a stack of various games beside them, which included anime games, FPS games, and more. Next to the T.V stand was a mini fridge where he would store various beverages to drink during his gaming sessions. On the apartment's walls were murals of various anime girls, which he had taken a liking to. In fact, he even had action figures which rested on the table his computer was on, and also posseed various body pillows, with Aqua's and Megumin's body pillows being his favorites. In the kitchen area, he stored various light novels, most of which were fantasy and isekai, but included other genres. These books were stored in the upper cupboards, where he could have stored kitchenware, but that was unnecessary, as he lived alone. He only needed a couple of utensils, nothing more. He didn't feel the need to store them in the kitchen. He just placed them wherever. He always remembered where they were, so he wasn't worried about losing them or anything. His apartment was messy by all means. It could be better, but wasn't in any bad state. He went to the kitchen area and stored his floor before plopping down onto the pillow he normally sat on when watching T.V or gaming his console. He was doing either at the moment. Rather, he was fruitlessly trying to suppress the tears rushing from his eyes. He just wished wasn't alone anymore. Wasn't rejected by the world he used to be in, the world that caused all this trauma by actively taking his precious people away from him. No matter how powerful he got, they'd still disappear as if they had never existed. He couldn't cope with that world, and because of that, when he entered this world, he thought things would get better even if he lost his best friend. How wrong he was. He could tell from the filth that saturated the nature energy this world had. It was disgusting, like a highly viscous, slimy pool of hatred. It terrified him. No, rather, he judged that if this world was in such a state, it would be worse than the shinobi world. All hope was lost for him. No point in living anymore. He couldn't even kill himself anymore. This world's weapons wouldn't harm him in any way, and not only that, he had sealed away his chakra and physical prowess, so he couldn't harm himself either, so all that was left for him was to wait. 200 years? 300? How long were Uzumaki's supposed to live for anyway? Well, that didn't matter at that moment. All that mattered was calming himself, which was a pointless endeavor. The void in his heart was far too large. He felt a pair of arms wrap around his neck, and a soft sensation on the back of his head. There, there! A familiar voice comforted as Naruto felt fingers running through his messy hair gently. He hadn't noticed a large red circle filled with ancient runes appearing behind him. He had an idea of who was behind him, but wasn't in the state of mind to connect the pieces. He just wailed as he was held in her arms. Sometime later, I am really sorry you had to sit through that. Naruto once again apologized to the girl in front of him. She shook her head, giving him a worried look. No, not at all. Are you sure you are okay? She placed her hand on his shoulder. He nodded, and she gave a smile. She then coughed into her hand, moving to change the topic. You must be wondering how I got here. Not really. What? The girl questioned, expressed his surprise. Naruto pointed at the place the circle had appeared in. I saw some centaur-looking thing a few years back. I watched it rip apart some cops from afar. After seeing that, I don't think stuff related to the supernatural can surprise me. He tried to chuckle but failed. It must have been that Naklavi Oniai-sama took care of. She sighed. Well then, that makes this easier for me. I am a devil, and I am here to grant you a wish. She smiled innocently. Hey, you aren't gonna eat my soul, right? Also, how'd I summon you? He looked troubled as the girl he met earlier was supposedly an evil creature that appeared in the Bible. Was all the kindness she showed him during their first encounter fake? Was it just a way for her to snake into his life and take it? Well, that wouldn't be bad at all. Maybe he could finally find peace in the afterlife. Very few devils can eat souls. That practice is very old school, so we don't do it anymore. As for how you got me here, it was the flyer in your pocket. She dismissed his worries easily with a cheerful smile. Now then, human, tell me your desires, she said in an adorable evil voice, bringing out her wings. Kill me, denied. Next wish. Huh? Aren't you supposed to give me anything I want? I don't recall saying any wish. Besides, a devil's work is not for free, so if you died, I wouldn't receive compensation, she explained, turning her head away from him as his sweat dropped. Fair enough, he whispered. Naruto had a thought and froze. Nah, she ain't gonna accept that. No way. He tried to rein himself in. He failed. He began sweating as his muscles tensed up, making him look like a frightened animal. He grit his teeth and struggled to look up from his lap as his fists clutched his sweat pants and quads. He struggled to speak as he finally looked at the angel. No devil before him. His uncertainty was palpable to that point it made him seem like a weary puppy whose injuries were inflicted by a human. She took his hands and clutched them gently. You don't have to be so nervous. Just ask and we'll talk about the price later. It won't be anything awful, I swear, she promised him, gently encouraging him to speak. He took a deep breath in. Watch the new anime One Punch Man with me, he exclaimed before shrinking, expecting her to shout at him for requesting something so useless. Rias paused and took a moment to identify her surroundings, and it took everything she had not to scream in excitement. She composed herself. Of course. The manga is fantastic, and I have been dying to see an anime adaptation. Hopefully, it isn't disappointing, but it's a studio madhouse, so I feel encouraged. Naruto froze, with wide eyes, and was on the brink of tears once more. The girl held his hand once more, gazing into his deep blue eyes. You okay? Of course. He finally smiled, for the first time in who knows how many years. He finally felt happy that he had a companion, even if the arrangement was temporary. Even said the arrangement could ruin him. And so he loaded up Crunchyroll, and they sat through the 12-episode anime. Saitama is such a chilled and hilarious dude, and I really love that about him, and kinda relatable as well. Naruto laughed as he remembered Saitama being unable to kill a mosquito to the point that he chased it, carrying a can of insecticide. That part nearly killed both him and the devil as they both burst out in a fit of laughter. All that power, and he couldn't do such a simple task. The devil looked at him, as if asking him to explain how the MC was relatable. I don't know if you can understand, but you see I'm a gamer, and I tend to obsessively play one game at a time to the point I become a god at it. The cost of all that power is boredom. There was this one online game I played where I was so good that I played competitively, and was forced to play every game and fulfill every role, he explained sadly, as he looked at the ceiling and began thinking about his past life. The devil looked at him, as if sizing him up, but didn't interrupt. And he is such a normal guy despite having all that power. He isn't bound by responsibilities and duties, and I envy him for that, he explained, looking down at his feet. The devil also gained a despondent look, thinking about her duties and arranged marriage, contrasting them with Saitama's life, where he could do as he pleased. Naruto looked at her beautiful face curiously, seeing her depressed. Looks like I'm not the only one with troubles. They both chuckled, and a comfortable silence descended upon the two, with the two taking time to self-introspect. A few moments passed in silence before Naruto turned to the girl in front of him. That was fantastic. Thanks, Rias. Rias Gremory, Naruto Uzumaki. He introduced himself in the European fashion. So, about your compensation. Rias looked troubled at his statement. If I erase his memory of me, there is no telling what he might do to himself, she thought, placing her fingers on her chin. Wait a minute. How much time did I spend here? She thought to herself. Duties have been stressful lately. Yes, this is good. She nodded, pleased with her idea. All right, Uzumaki-san. What I want is... She paused dramatically, hoping to stress him out a bit and tease him, but much to her disappointment, he remained completely composed. I want to come here and relax from time to time for the next few weeks, she stated in an even tone. Wait, does that mean we can hang? Of course. Naruto hugged her immediately and squeezed her tight, surprising her. Thank you. Of course, come anytime you'd like. In fact, here is a key. And he continued rumbling incomprehensible things, making her giggle, expressing her great amusement at this human. And so it wasn't a few weeks. This went on for over a year, with Naruto later confessing his feelings to her, and much to his confusion, surprise, and excitement she reciprocated. They sealed it with a really awkward tooth bash. Then a headbutt. Then they tripped. All manner of phenomena occurred before they could finally lock lips. Their relationship was rather difficult to balance at the time, as Rias felt that he should be kept a secret for his safety, not knowing that Naruto was an entity that was far beyond her. Because he was a secret, Rias rarely visited as to not arouse suspicion, which would inevitably lead to her followers or enemies tracking her down. Another problem was Naruto's secret. Rias had long since opened up about her marriage to Sooo, someone she didn't like, which was a shock to the blonde, but he had yet to tell her about his origins. Perhaps she didn't ask him about them, feeling that talking about it would cause his depression to return, which was something she absolutely didn't want. In her words, that boy is never gonna feel hurt again. And that drove her to suppress her curiosity. Rias then asked begged Naruto to rejoin society once more, as only having a relationship with her was extremely unhealthy for his human mind. Naruto flat out refused, and they both had a long debate which ended in Rias' victory, and so Naruto finally left his house and went out into the world once more. Then, he was caught by cops and forced to enroll into school. God damn it, Rias! The devil had the gall to stick her tongue at him, as she waves off his complaints and whines. He was sure that girl would be the death of him. He would later enroll in Kuoh as soon as it became co-ed, so he could finally be able to see Rias more than in just his apartment, and boy! He felt rather aroused by her school uniform, but said uniform upset him, so he forced her to wear a longer skirt and tights, which irritated her greatly, but ended up complying with her boyfriend's wishes. Naruto didn't want any filthy boys anywhere near her, especially that pervert trio. Naruto 1-to-1 Rias. Akino and the rest of the school had given her rather questioning gazes, but didn't ask about. They acted like nothing happened. He was by no means popular. In fact, he was feared by the school's general populace, and was actively avoided by not only the students, but the teachers as well. He didn't mind as Rias checked on him from time to time, and the students merely saw it as Onisama, taming that delinquent, which was really advantageous. Their relationship got exposed to her peerage when Kaneko caught Naruto fondling Rias' fine bust. The girl didn't expose herself, instead silently got away and reported to the rest of the group. Rias had a lot of explaining to do that day. On a side note, Naruto fondling Rias' watermelons was a complete accident, and he had expected her to lash out at him, except she didn't. She just teased him. Come to think of it, she occasionally walked out of his shower in her birthday suit, not showing any qualms about him seeing her nude form. Rias' peerage understood her problem and decided that it would be best if their master continued this relationship with said human, because she never looked as happy as she had been currently before. They also understood what would happen if Rias' enemies found out about him, and so they sent Akino as a representative to give him the means to defend himself. She would teach him magic without Rias' knowledge, mind you. She flirted with him from time to time, only to end up in disappointment as she couldn't fluster him. She was sad. Naruto would then eventually meet the rest of Rias' group and was able to befriend them, and hung out with them once in a while, when he wasn't having lunch alone somewhere on school premises. Naruto also learned of other factions, and felt that he wanted to become a devil, so he could always be with her, but she refused, stating that being involved with devil business was much too dangerous. He was much too weak. If only she knew. In fact, Naruto was such a well-kept secret that even Rias' rival Sona Citri did not know of him. Hope you enjoyed it. Harem, please do like and subscribe to my channel. Let's continue. Uzumaki Naruto had seen a plethora of unusual things throughout his life, but something about this just did him in. He was curled up on Rias' lap, with roaring laughter emanating from his mouth. He just couldn't hold it in. It was as ridiculous and adorable as Rias' former Chuyuni tendencies. Why must people grow up? He wondered. He missed the days when he would poke fun at Rias for doing spirits guns. Well, that, and irresponsibly using her magic for effect, especially during entrances. That was pretty hilarious, but what he was watching was just wow. Akino covered her mouth, giggling because Naruto's laughter infected her. Kaneko was smiling and Kiba was giving Issei a sympathetic look. All eyes were on the teenager at the center, making him a bit uncomfortable as he attempted to pull out his power by referencing Dragon Ball. Laughter, it roared like a bear but rolled around like hyena. How the hell wasn't he out of breath? Was one of the thoughts running through his mind. The brunette, the center of attention, just stared at the offending blonde whilst his left eye twitched. He had short spiky hair, with 2 short locks of hair behind his head, and light brown eyes. Shut your trap, little shit! Hayato Issei was not the type to take rumors to heart, instead took them with a pinch of salt. He truly didn't believe the infamous delinquent, Uzumaki Naruto, was actually a bad guy, evidenced by when he saw the teenager gently tending to plants, or feeding doves in the park, or peacefully taking naps whilst basking in the sun. He just seemed like a normal guy who struggled with society's ethics and the like. Issei had observed him from afar, and noted the qualities of struggling NET, who was trying to return to society, and thus Issei respected him for that. Issei wished to approach him truly, but his friends just wouldn't let him anywhere near. The Blood Fox. Rumor had it that he took out a group of delinquents, who were provoked, on his own after he pissed on their bikes. To them, it seemed like he had fallen into their trap, but it was in fact that fell into his. None of the boys left without blue eyes and bloody noses apparently, and that served to increase his notoriety. Maybe him constantly antagonizing the student council didn't help at all. To be fair to him, Issei once saw how they always troubled him, like once when he exited a convenience store with cups of what he thought was instant ramen. Everyone knew how much Uzumaki Naruto loved his ramen. It was to the point that his obsession with the noodly dish was compared to the perverted trio's obsession with the female body. Quite ridiculous indeed, which was pretty strange, as he was seen having other foods from time to time. People just paid attention to his ramen and didn't notice other things he liked. Issei noticed that icy treats, particularly ice pop, seemed to have emotional significance to him. It was weird watching a boy characterized as a monster become mellow as he consumed the frosty treat. Were the students wrong? They disliked him so much that when people noticed he seemed to have affections for the great one-sama, Rias Gremory, the cops were called on him without any form of evidence. He felt bad for the guy. It was pretty funny when a rumor circulated the school that Rias Gremory had returned his affectionate and longing gazes with one of her own. It was treated like a nightmare, and it died immediately. Everyone forgot about it, acting like it never happened. Issei pitied him. Issei actually wanted to try to be friends with him one day. Well, except this one apparently. He saw that piece of filth resting on the lap of the great one-sama, Rias Gremory, whilst being doted on by the school's mascot. Using bastard, average looking but getting the best girls. He swore he saw Akino staring at him with lustful eyes. TCH. He did his best to pay attention as Rias went on to explain how everyone in the room was a devil except for Naruto. She then explained how most mythologies were real, and specified their faction was under the Judeo-Christian mythos. He tried listening as she went on to explain something about a war with angels and falling angels. Issei-kun, pay attention, chastised Rias, moving her fingers through the blonde spiky hair. Sorry. Wait a minute, what's your relationship with that man? Clarity increased each second, showing that the rumors were true. Using lucky bastard? Oh, him. Ignore him. I'm just his obligee, I'll get to that a little later. She giggled innocently, listening to Issei grind his teeth. Is he really? Issei turned to look at Kiba, who merely turned to the wall, then to Akino, who looked at the ceiling. How suspicious, Suari, Issei drawled while narrowing his eyes. Obligee or not, isn't that a bit much? What silly imagination you have there, Issei-kun. Anyway, I'm gonna continue. Pay attention this time, Kay? Issei nodded and listened to Rias explain more about the nature of their faction. Evil Pieces then moved on to explain about the sacred gear system. She then told him he had a sacred gear, almost making him shout in joy. His excitement was vivid, which was shown by how he immediately interrogated her on how he could activate such a power, which then led to this situation. Blah! Oh my goodness, this kid thinks he can do an energy wave. Oh! Naruto choked on his spit before resuming his laughter, clutching his stomach. Kid? I'm the same age as you, bastard. Issei frowned. Senpai, don't laugh so much, you are gonna choke, warned the white-haired petite girl with golden eyes. She had 2 long bangs going past her shoulders, and several loose bangs going over her forehead, while the back had a short bob cut. She also wore black cat-shaped hair clips on both sides of her hair. She was dressed in the school's standard uniform. She gently rubbed his heaving chest, contrary to how she treated him when he first entered the room. How intimate! Don't tell me he is already ahead of me in my harem journey. Issei whined internally, watching the aloof girl worry over the boy on her master's lap. It seemed to me that it was more than a servant protecting their master's treasure. What makes you think you're worth competing with? Issei imagined him say, with a smug look on his face. He wanted nothing more than to charge at the guy and pummel him. There was no way he would lose, right? He was just human, he was a devil. Something told Issei that he would be mercilessly beaten down. Ignore him, Issei-kun. Try again. He was met with a smile from the second one-sama. She was a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure, very long black hair, and violet eyes. Her hair was tied into a long ponytail with an orange ribbon that Issei suspected had to do with the bastard on Rias' lap. It is a well-known fact that Uzumaki Naruto loves orange and blue. It's even more known that Akino-san likes violet, white, and black. Why you? Issei seethed uncontrollably. Of course. Kami. He put his hands together and took a stance. Ha ha ha! He roared even louder, curling up even more. Kaneko then moved her hand from his chest and went to rub his back. Shut your trap, you little shit! He screamed with a tick mark appearing on his temple. Naruto stopped laughing and adopted a stoic look that was eerily similar to that of a doll. Issei shook his head, thinking it was his imagination, and shifted his attention back to his hands. Coughed. Issei glared at Naruto. Sorry. Carry on. Kamehameha. He roared with all his might, causing a green light to erupt from the back of his left hand. The green light was then surrounded by a red light that extended down to his forearm. The lights disappeared, revealing a red gauntlet with a green jewel and 2 golden spikes that manifested on his arm. Ha 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 ha. When I saw the lights, I had high hopes, but it turned out to be a wimpy-looking gauntlet. Oh goodness. I am unyielding dying. Ha 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 ha. The roaring laughter could be heard once more. It's as disappointing as Peter Grill. Ah ha 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 ha. Naruto, you naughty boy. Rias chastised, smacking his forehead. If you continue this behavior, then I am going to have to let Issei touch my watermelons and make you watch. She threatened, giving the blonde a teasing smile. Oh my! Giggled Akino, getting excited for what was about to unfold in this drama. Kaneko looked like she had swallowed something bitter. She didn't like where this was going. What really? Loudly exclaimed Issei, clutching his fist tightly, bearing stars in his eyes. Of course. This boy is still laughing even after I gave him a warning. Come here, Issei. Here a reward for activating your sacred gear. Rias stuck her chest whilst making sure Naruto didn't fall off her lap. I don't mind. I happen to like NTR after all. Go ahead, Issei, have your treat. Your pure with 0 body count hands are about to graduate today. Naruto cheered the boy on from his comfy seat. Kaneko had a shocked look on her face when Naruto said that. What's this? Is my Kitty-chan not as innocent as she seems? Oh my! He teased the girl who covered her blushing face. Shut up, Baka-senpai. She tried to rebuke him, but ended up covering her face. Issei didn't need any more encouragement and moved towards the redhead and her not-boyfriend with a confident march. I'm about to do it. My first squeeze is gonna be Rias Wanisama. He made creepy motions with his hands, approaching the not couple, ignoring the withering glare filled with disgust coming from Kaneko. Yes, he could feel it. Soft, jiggly heaven. It was right there. Almost there, just a few more steps. Wait. Something isn't right. Issei froze. He wasn't sick, that was for sure, but something was stopping him, no warning him. Naruto had a warm smile, and his face wasn't off in any way. His smile reached his eyes just fine, but Issei's hands felt cold, and he felt shivers going down his spine. Despite feeling like he was cold, he was sweating, and a strange fear welling up in him. He couldn't understand what in hell was wrong with him. He knew he was still the same height as he was earlier, but somehow he felt like an ant. He felt small, insignificant, whilst at the same time feeling like a child who was forced to walk into a tiger's den to poke it with a stick, fully aware of how dangerous tigers are, the consequences of disturbing. Except a tiger didn't pop into his mind. An Arctic fox bathed in crimson. Was that his head over there? It was. His entrails on its cute little head? What is going on? He wondered. As he tried to move closer, he saw its tiny, cute little paws inching towards his exposed, but still beating heart as if holding it hostage. Issei felt afraid. He felt like vomiting, but his muscles were too afraid to even cause retroperistalsis. Blood fox. Blood fox. Blood fox. Watermelon. Issei's will strengthened. He had to march. Move! He commanded his body to no avail. What's wrong, Issei-kun? Rias tilted her head to the side, pretending to not be aware of what was going on. Yeah, Issei. What wrong, my guy? 2 perfect melons are waiting for you right here. Naruto proceeded to poke said melons, moving his hands up and down, causing them to jiggle. Issei would have normally had a nosebleed and rushed to action, but he was too distracted and disturbed. He just couldn't make heads or tails on what was happening with him. Oh bro! Hurry up! You missing out? They soft yet firm at the same time. Almost jelly-like, allowing my fingers to sink in with ease yet resisting them. This feeling is perfect, my guy! Naruto drooled as the rest of his fingers moved up to cup Rias' boobs, squeezing, kneading, and pulling. The rest of the peerage except Akino, who was also aware, looked confused and worried at Issei's behavior. You good, senpai? Asked Kaneko with worry in her voice, turning away from Naruto for the first time since she left her seat to dote on him. Issei twitched, uncontrollably feeling mocked despite seeing how genuine Naruto seemed to be. The fox was wiggling its eye ridges, like how a human would wiggle its eyebrows. Behind it was a gate that seemed to lead to heaven. Emma must touch Emma massive GG Gazankas. Issei fought back his intense, irrational fear and took a step forward. He regretted it immediately. The fox ran its claws through one of his arms, drawing more blood. Yeah, that's right. They massive. She's practically a cow. Naruto was sent to the floor for that statement. Kaneko immediately rushed to his side and pulled him into an embrace. Senpai, don't say that. It isn't nice. Kaneko stroked his hair affectionately. Ah, she dumped me. I love you, Kaneko. Flat as justice, cried Naruto. He was sent flying to the wall, slowly slid down, and landed on the ground with a dry thud. Kiba immediately went to check on the human and sighed in relief. No harm was done to him, fortunately. As tears dramatically streamed down Naruto's face, he looked up to Kiba. Why me? Kiba gave a wry smile as he helped his friend up. He was a handsome young man with short, blonde hair, blue eyes, and a mole underneath his left eye. He was dressed in the standard school uniform. I can't. It's impossible. If I do it, I'm gonna die. Issei wailed internally as he stopped trying. And no thank you. He rejected with a dark cloud over his head. Oh my! I'm hurt. Rias feigned sadness before shrugging her shoulders. I never understood how Naruto does that. It's neither magic nor a sacred gear. Rias thought as she played with one of her bangs. She had found out about said ability when she, accidentally, reset his PS4, making him lose progress on most of his games, most notably Dark Souls 3. He was near the end. He just smiled warmly and said, mistakes happen. In a very convincing manner, yet for some reason, she felt great fear. He wouldn't talk to her for 2 weeks, and she had to beg him and cry to convince him to talk to her again. She then made a note to never touch any of his games or consoles with the intent of resetting again. He punished her by forcing her to play the game and reach the halfway point without dying. Once. It took almost a year for her to be relieved of that punishment. Rias expected it to be like the stereotypical anime relationship. She thought she was in control until that day. She found out the pants were his, and she was only warming them for him. He was the one really in control. She shivered. That sly fox. Akino found this out when she stole all his ramen ingredients and replaced them with vegetables. He went ballistic on the girl, tied her up, and mercilessly zapped her numerous times with the lightning spell he had been trying to learn for the past 6 weeks with no success. She then made an erotic mess all over the floor while screaming, "Yes, Daddy!" After she cleaned her little mess, she felt a strange fear growing within her. It prevented her from doing her usual sensual business, sealing away her flirtiness or even getting close to him. She had to grovel and cry to beg him to stop. She desperately wanted to be able to keep in proximity to him again. It was driving her crazy. Poor Issei, it's okay. Naruto went over and gently rubbed the crying boy's shoulder, comforting him. Shut up! That was you! This is your fault! I know you were the one that caused this. Makes sense cause you are her boyfriend, aren't you? Issei threw one accusation after another, then proceeded to hurl all sorts of profanities that would make a sailor proud. Wha? Me? Dunno what you talking about, man. She's just my obligee. Naruto pretended not to notice the withering glare. Oh well, looks like I'm not wanted here. Naruto sighed sadly. He moved to Kiba and gave him a fist bump, kissed Ria's cheek, ruffled Kaneko's hair, and hugged Akino before stumbling out the door in style, yelling, "Later, losers!" They all smiled warmly and waved at the former young seal bearer. I hate that guy so much. Issei muttered dryly. It's okay, Issei. Once you get used to him, you'll find that he is a fantastic person. Kiba tried comforting. Shut it, pretty boy, with Naruto. Kids just like sensei. Naruto smiled as fond memories of Jiraiya rushed into his mind. Naruto broke in a light jog, going over to his house to grab a shovel. Why? To dig, of course. He entered the building, then exited with a shovel that had seen better days. He then moved to the more forested areas of the town. He moved to a specific spot and began digging around, hoping to find some bait. Naruto was craving for some roasted fish, and he was gonna get it. So the first thing he needed was bait, which was what he came to the forest for. I should check on the stuff I've buried around here a while. Naruto ceased collecting worms and moved to a weird-looking tree and dug down near its roots, revealing a small chest. Naruto opened the chest and checked its contents, which were crosses, rosaries, a Bible, and vials of holy water. You may ask why Naruto had these items, and the answer was simple. Defense. Ever since he had seen the Nuklavi, which was supposed to be somewhere in Scotland or something, he prepared himself in case a demonic entity invaded his home. He wanted to die at the time, but knew they wouldn't be able to kill him. But instead, leave a mess, which he would have to clean up, which was pretty a huge turnoff. He got rid of everything for Ria's safety, as she once wanted to watch him play on PC. Her foot nearly grazed the Bible and mentioned that she felt unsettled for some reason, and to his horror saw a light bruise on the back of her foot. Naruto's heart nearly jumped out of his chest, and as soon as Rias left, he collected every single holy item in his possession and put it in a chest, and rushed to bury it somewhere, which was this more forested part Kuoh. Now, why would he constantly check on items he got rid of? Well, there was one particular item that radiated a lot of holy power, and it was redacted. Naruto sighed in relief and returned the items to the chest. He looked at the Bible and stopped. Something told him to bring it with him. Something told him he needed it. Hey, something, that's rude. Naruto whined internally. He took the book and placed it in a leather bag to stop it from accidentally harming his pals. Naruto then turned and walked away, with his destination being a pond. Naruto didn't understand what the hell was with fishing. It was so relaxing and a pretty pleasant experience even if there was no catch. The peace he felt when fishing was like alcohol for a lot of people. It drowned away sadness. It was just nice to do. He once brought Rias with him and expected her to be bored out of her mind, but she loved it and considered it a date. Naruto didn't know what the hell she was talking about, but went along with it. She may have been his girlfriend, but he still wasn't used to dating. Questions like, is everything we do together a date? Should I bring a list of all my insecurities, so there aren't any secrets between us? What about a headband with sunflower seeds to absorb all my nervous sweat? Wait, aren't I Shinobi who can hide the nonsense above? Ran through his mind at the early stages of his relationship. He still didn't understand to this day. Maybe it was because we were far away from technology and stuff and actually chilled with each other? Maybe. He didn't and won't ask. He felt a tug on his line, and he dramatized a struggle before pulling. It got away, he said dryly before shrugging. He reapplied the bait and cast his line once more. Any luck there, kid? Asked an unfamiliar, masculine voice. One got away. He sighed despondently as he focused on his line. Well, it happens sometimes. The owner chuckled as he cast his own line, sitting a few meters away from Naruto. Yeah. For some reason, I always feel like trying again even when the day's real bad, you know? Oh yeah. I know that very well. The man laughed softly. Name's Azazel. What yours, kid? Naruto. Naruto responded cheerfully to his companion. Naruto Uzumaki. His companion sounded foreign, so he introduced him in the manner common in the West. Nice to meet you, Naruto. The pleasure's all mine. Naruto turned to the man next to him. He looked pretty tall, in his 20s, had an average build, black hair, golden bangs, and black goatee. He was dressed in clothes that made him indistinguishable from the crowd. So Naruto, He pulled and got a fish which proceeded to euthanize it with ikejime and place it in a cooler box. When you start living in Kuoh? The man switched to English. About 2 to 3 years now. Lived in the States in my childhood, then moved to Germany and a few other European countries. Then China moved Tokyo to live with my aunt after my parents died. She died to a gang unfortunately, so I came here, Naruto explained, watching his bobber float on the water. Oh, my condolences, thanks. Naruto gave a smile. They had a conversation for a little while until, looks this enough. Naruto stood up, looking at the fish in hand and placing it in the cooler box. I'm expecting a friend at home later. See you around, old man. The boy waved and Azazel waved back, giving a friendly smile. Sure, kid. Have fun, thanks. Naruto's distant voice echoed. What a strange human. The man chuckled softly before, focusing on his line. It was nighttime already. Naruto had already cooked rice and left it in his rice cooker. He would cook the fish later. Right now, he felt like getting fresh air. Of course, he brought the scripture. After all, he needed it. Naruto felt resistance to his being as he walked by a large abandoned building. He then saw a centaur-looking woman dragging a corpse into the building. He moved past the barrier quietly, likely meant to keep humans away to prevent them from finding its hideout. Naruto had already taken to covering himself with dirt to best hide his scent as he skillfully and quietly climbed to the room and looked through cracks, watching the somewhat attractive woman consume the cadaver. Better report this to Rias. Looks like she'll handle it just fine, just like the others before it, he analyzed, scouting the creature. Stray devils tended to let their aura leak in waves to the point that normal humans like Naruto could feel it. Naruto is normal in the sense that he also sealed his sensory powers. Naruto took advantage of this to scout out these monsters to make sure that Rias is safe. And speaking of Rias, a familiar magic circle erupted from the floor and summoned Rias and her gang, Issei included. Naruto watched Rias explain the evil P system in greater detail than she did before, and the others battle the monster. The monster swallowed Kaneko. Hey! Don't touch my cat! Naruto's eye twitched in annoyance, feeling like jumped down and beating down the monster. He then decided quietly to get down and join them from the door the monster left open, because Rias' attention was away from the monster, endangering her to a certain degree. Naruto quietly walked up to them and stood next to Rias. He went unnoticed. Hey, watch out! Naruto said in a relaxed voice, pulling Rias into his chest. A glob of acid went past where she was standing, surprising Issei. The peerage and Rias were surprised at Naruto's appearance. Hey lizard breath, pay attention to the battle. Your master could have been harmed. Naruto criticized harshly. Why yes. Issei immediately turned to the battle. He learns fast. Naruto nodded in satisfaction. Naruto! It's dangerous. What are you doing here? She all but screamed at her boyfriend. She had an alarmed and horrified expression on her face, as she made sure her eyes weren't deceiving her. Your hellish booty called me. He rubbed her cheek, causing Rias to rub her temples. It's him all right. She held in the urge to scream. The simple mission had become a complex situation, well, at least in her eyes. Naruto was but a simple, fragile human, and a simple attack could end his life. Kaneko and Akino's eyes shot at him briefly before widening, but were forced to look back at the monster as it was pressuring them. Go home! She paused and thought of the monster going after him, or it having some kind of mechanism that prevented prey from leaving. No, make sure you don't leave my side. Her focus and guard heightened to the extremes. I smell food. Oh, a cute little human. The creature hissed as it fended off Kiba and Kaneko. Akino was close by, watching it. I smell you too. Dude, you stink? When was the last time you took a bath? You little shit. I'll kill you. It hissed in anger as it struggled against Kaneko and Kiba. Naruto, please don't provoke the stray. Rias sighed, but she went ignored. Don't say stuff like that. Threatening people. Like seriously? The hell's the matter with you? You should get a Bible. You really need it. Naruto emphasized the really, as he talked to the struggling stray. The thing managed to escape, causing Akino to widen her eyes. She prepared magic circles, but it was too late. It was already on Naruto and Rias. Oh goodness. You need it that bad? Kay, here, I got you. I'm a great guy, aren't I? Naruto casually yeeted the scripture into its maw. It roared in pain, keeling over and scratching at its throat. The others were visibly surprised by the turn in events. Naruto! Rias looked at her boyfriend sternly. What? He pretended not to have a Bible in his possession. Bible? Oh, that. Don't worry about it. It's a one-time thing, I swear. She grabbed his ear and pulled. Hard. Not hard enough, apparently. His head jerked, but he didn't display any form of discomfort. Era, not only do you threaten to harm my master, but you actually went with it and attack him? Naughty, naughty, naughty. Akino's voice grew colder, while somehow maintaining her coy smile as lightning sparked to life. Get your loyalties straight, Akino. Ria suddenly had a headache. She reached to her forehead to massage it. Yua! Wanisama is a sadist, Ria sighed. A little dialogue occurred and Rias proceeded to annihilate the monster with her power of destruction, intriguing Naruto. I'm so glad I forced you to wear a longer skirt and tights. Shut up. Ria sighed in frustration, then went to check for traps, then back. Issei, take this one home and make sure he gets to bed. Tie him down and sing him a lullaby if you have to. Hey! Why? You aren't a devil, nor are you affiliated with my house, so I can't teleport you home. Ugh! I am going to bed. Rias explained, rubbing her eyes, displaying irritation at her boyfriend's lack of sense of danger. Yes, ma'am. Come on, you bastard. You ain't getting away from me. Issei arrested Naruto's arm, causing the blonde to raise an eyebrow. Naruto-san, please be more mindful of where you go from now on. Senpai, you idiot. Don't leave me for a weird reason like being doused in boob acid. I'll laugh at you. Master, I won't always be there for you. Please show more caution. You aren't a child anymore. 3 worried voices called out and chastised. Naruto looked away from them. Use you? I'm not your baby. He pouted. Turn me into a devil now, Rias? Denied. Issei, it's really important no one finds out about my relationship with him. He is just a human and what other devils would do just to get to me. She paused. Please. I beg you. She asked tearfully. I will. I swear on my parents' good names. Rias nodded in satisfaction at Issei's statement. Good. I trust you, Issei. That idiot is really important to me. Rias confirmed her intimacy with the blonde once more. She looked like she was about to fall over from anxiety. A magic circle appeared under her. Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko waved goodbye as they were teleported away. Damn it! Was gonna ask her to come to dine with me. He whined. Maybe coming here was a bad idea after all. You don't say. Issei sighed. So, Mr. Harem King, wanna have dinner at my house? I got real stuff there. Was thinking of watching the sequel of Spoiled Rich Girls. Issei's eyes went wide at the last part. Click. Hello? Mom? I think I am going to come home a little later tonight. I got a classmate to help with my maths. No, it's neither Motohama nor Matsuda. Got it, Mom, thanks. Rias never slept with Issei to heal him in this verse. It was her familiar in human form. Lead the way, Naru. Naru? Sorry, that was rude. No. I don't mind. It's just different from how you were acting before. Naruto teased as he walked down the street toward his apartment. Why? Oh, it's just that I have never received attention from girls, and seeing you with the prettiest girl in school just makes me. I can't explain it, but to simplify, I'm jealous. Whoa, my opinion of you went up. You seem pretty honest. Naruto laughed, seeing more similarities between the old fart and the kid. Both were quite honest with themselves and their desires. Tell me, Issei, why do you want a harem so much? Sure it can't be because you are a pure with zero body count and stuff, is it? Questioned the former hero of the shinobi world. Hey! So you have done the deed with Bucho? Nope. Wasn't with her, it was with a deceased lover of mine. Naruto's smile gained a hint of sadness to it. Stupid Inanna, he thought in a prideful manner, thinking of the amazing girl who had fought and sacrificed a lot for him. A princess, but actively served him. She was weird like that, but he couldn't deny it. He loved her. When she perished at the hands of pain, his heart shattered, causing him to isolate then subjugate himself to brutal training to become even stronger. His pride originated from the fact that Hinata worked day in and day out to the point that she gained power most Hyugas could only dream of. He didn't give a use about her being a woman and all he appreciated was the chance to fight alongside such a great, heroic, and gallant warrior that grew from a feeble and shy girl. He felt lucky that she loved him unconditionally, and he loved her too. Even when his mental state deteriorated because of his duties and past experiences, and visited brothels, she forgave him. She was open and supportive of him, and even welcomed Ino into their little family as a sister when he and Ino confessed that they had a relationship. His mental state eventually improved after the war, but it was far too late. She was already dead, and he grieved, causing him to force Sasuke to come train with him, as the Uchiha was the only one capable of challenging him, injuring him, and killing him. His brother made sure to help him in every way he could during their training, even doing things that would be considered gay, such as holding him in his arms, as he sobbed uncontrollably. Naruto loved Sasuke. He didn't regret not giving up on him. After all, brothers always came back together even after the shittiest of arguments, right? When he and Sasuke returned to the ninja world and found out that Ino had lost her life to Kaguya, they flipped and engaged her aggressively, destroying half of the Land of Lightning. Well, that mostly Naruto before Sasuke could join in. Ever since then, ever since he came to this world and lost Sasuke, he thought about everything. His life. His career. He realized he didn't even know he was human. This was another one of the contributing factors that led to him sealing his powers aside from it being a punishment. You okay, man? Issei moved to wrap his arm around the crying blonde. I'm sorry. He quickly wiped his tears. I can kinda understand how it feels. Issei started quietly and awkwardly. My gramps passed on, he continued. And, my mom miscarried too, and I always feel like my family is growing smaller. Way too small. Like I am gonna choke. And it's clearly affecting my pops and ma. If my parents were apart on business or didn't have me, they would have broke. Their relationship saved them, you see. And I want to restore that as well. Even now they are struggling, so lots of grandkids to help them cope could help. And I'm afraid of being lonely, I'm already kind of a social outcast, and don't have many friends. I am lustful, sure, but the reason I want a harem, I suppose, is to just have a bigger family, It's confusing. Naruto smiled as they crossed the road. What Issei had said had a lot of gaps, and that was understandable. After all, he could relate to the Red Dragon Emperor. As Pain explained, the only way for someone to understand another person was going through similar pain. He was devastated by Hinata's death, but Nagato made him realize that his people did exactly the same thing he did to him and his people, except in some cases even worse. He didn't forgive Nagato, but his training was able to suppress his rushing emotions and find a conclusion with Nagato. He somehow found brotherhood in the fact that they both had the same master, and liked that they became friends somehow. That's why a lot of people bark about sympathy. It can make you see reason even in the least likely of situations. Feeling can't just be explained logically, they could only be felt, and because of that Naruto perfectly understood what Issei was trying to communicate. He appreciated that Issei went against the norms for happiness. He is the same in some ways. In some realities, he would never know what it's like to lose a sibling, but in this one he knew. Issei didn't specify when miscarriages happened, but either way, the pain was similar in some ways but different. If they happened before his birth, then the sense of responsibility must weigh him down. If it happened after, then he would feel like a curse and ask, why was it me? Naruto could under Issei, fully and truly, especially since he was an orphan, one that contained the demon fox. The loneliness nearly crushed him and turned him into an actual monster. He was a little concerned about how Issei would treat his ladies, but he trusted the kid. He gave warnings either way. Well, that's noble of you, but make sure you love them all, K? And make sure they all in for the harem idea. You will face a lot of problems, but if you believe this is the right way, then go for it, and work hard. Use this desire to hone yourself, improve, and become someone they can rely on. Also, take care as to not treat them like objects, and treating them all equally is impossible, so don't stress too much, K. Days are never the same. Your favorite will keep changing. That's how emotions are. Naruto spoke from experience with Hinata and Ino. Issei grinned at the blonde. Using bastard, who do you think you are? Oh, you know. The guy with a harem. Naruto snorted in amusement, puffing his chest proudly. Wah-huh? Really? Nope. Issei's face vaulted, watching Naruto's chest deflate. But the direction things are going, it may happen. I am fully prepared to take the next step with them, but only with Rias' approval. He shrugged, thinking about his relationships with Akino and Kaneko changed over the past year. I see. You are a pretty cool dude, Naru. Yeah, I know, right? Bitches love me. Better not let the bitches hear you say that, you piece of shit. They both burst out laughing before a comfortable silence descended upon them. Partner, huh? Issei jumped in surprise. Naruto looked at the boy curiously, and the boy merely scratched his head sheepishly. Think. I can hear your thoughts. I am the entity within your sacred gear. I'll explain later. You have to get away from that human. Something is very off about him. The alarmed voice continued, trying to dissuade Issei from joining Naruto. Issei looked around, confirming that the voice really was inside his head. What do you mean off? His presence is weird. My time has run out. Be wary of him. It warned before disappearing once more. You okay, dude? You look like you were having a conversation with someone. Issei contemplated whether he should tell Naruto or not. Some voice in my head was telling me you were weird. It spoke as if you were some mafia boss or something? That's weird. Naruto said, opening his door, and began setting the table, and went into his room to extract his hidden treasures from his room. And so they bonded over porn whilst having rice, fish, and soy sauce. Nothing special. After the movie. Damn indeed. Naruto responded, moving his hand away from his face, revealing slightly flushed cheeks and tissues stuffed into his nose. Issei was just the same, except he was drooling like crazy. Tell me, my good man, boobs or cheek, ass? Naruto responded without pause, shocking Issei. Ass. Your girl has. I mean, I feel like I'm violating the bro code, but her gazonkas, man. I know, right? They awesome, but they serve to distract you from the real prize behind. Naruto responded in a lecherous manner. A wise man once said, boobs can be faked, but a good cheek never lies. He continued, causing Issei's jaw to drop. But plastic? It's not plastic, you idiot. They don't add plastic to your stuff at all. Those are perfectly functioning tissues and muscles, bruh. Plastic is just Greek for mold, if I'm not mistaken. It's plastikos. Oh, I see. So that's where the word came from. Issei nodded in understand, using his devil power to confirm. But I still love watermelon. That's cool. Boobs and cheek are two halves that make women more fantastic. Agreed. Issei nodded as he stood up and made for the door. I'm just gonna tell Prez I put you to sleep. Don't stay up late and get me in trouble. See you tomorrow. The door closed. Ciao. Naruto waved at the closed door before moving to lock it. I was noticed. What's off about me, I wonder? Naruto thought, cleaned and washed the dishes, dried his hands, and carefully took his treasure out of the DVD and hid it away once more. Naruto moved to his desk and pulled out some paper from a drawer and began writing seals. Come to think of it, didn't Rias tell me the two dragons could harm souls? Is it possible could also see them? Or what remains of them? Naruto stared at the diamond-shaped mark on his left hand. Maybe the dragon didn't see me, but instead saw what remains of Tonari. He frowned, remembering the Otsutsuki placing the mark on him in an attempt to save himself. But then, why didn't Kagaya place her mark on either of us? Naruto stopped working on the seal, just went to bed. There was no point in trying to hide even more. It was inevitable, he was going to be exposed to the supernatural soon. After all, his girlfriend had invited heaps of trouble by reincarnating the Red Dragon Emperor. He had a feeling the White One was gonna be a pain in the cheek. That silly girl. He yawned before drifting off to the land of dreams. The next day, though, was uneventful. Like most days, he didn't go see the Occult Research Club in order to preserve his secret. Dodged the student council. They added a new kid called Saji to their merry group, but he sucked even more than they did at catching him. Naruto dismissed himself from school early, as the boredom he felt in mathematics was unbearable. Just learning what he already knew, like what the use. He ain't gonna sit through that. The academy taught its students all sorts of things, maths included, so he wasn't even going to try. Naruto walked into a ramen stand, had his fill, and headed home. Maybe a few solo versus squad games, then perhaps upload a video. He also thought of creating merchandise and starting a large business from YouTube from there. He didn't spend much money on anything these days. He found out that his rent was being paid for by someone, which he suspected to be a certain red-haired devil. That girl was going to force a mansion onto him, he swore. He wanted to be someone both he and his girl could be proud of, so he started making plans to work extra hard, double, triple the effort. He didn't know how far her pockets went, but he would rival her. Sadly for him. Yes. Sadly for him. He'll find out soon. I feel like less of a man all of a sudden. His face gained a tired look. He walked to a bench by the fountain and laid down and watched the clouds before taking a nap. What he didn't know was, that was the bench Issei died next to. Later, Naruto couldn't believe his eyes. A devil near a church. No, Issei walking with a girl. There was no way that was happening. He couldn't believe it. He knew the boy had potential, but he didn't expect him to be that quick. Holy shit, dude. Naruto could feel pride in his heart. Wait. If Rias finds out about this, something's off about that church. Could that be the fallen angel base? Naruto narrowed his eyes, using his enhanced vision to watch the girl enter the church. He saw a glimpse of what seemed to be a black feather. His hair cast a shadow over his eyes. I might have to step if this goes out of control. He had no idea how strong the fallen angels were, but he was still worried for Rias and the others. They may have had experience fighting strays, but their intelligence was consumed by their power. The previous night was not the only time Naruto watched Rias and her group fight. He had seen them dozens of times, and had a good grasp of their weaknesses, one of which was actually fighting things that could actually kill them. Kiba sacrificed too much strength for speed, and tended to overthink as he swung his blades. Kaneko was Kiba, but inverted, and also refused to take advantage of her Nekishu powers. She also tended to be too direct with her approach to combat, showing that she was over-reliant on her rook status. Naruto didn't know how to scale Rias and Akino because of his inexperience with magic. Actually, he was pretty decent nowhere near Akino though, but he didn't know how strong users of magic could be, so he couldn't scale them properly. His thought of being decent crumbled instantly. He just decided they were pretty good. Good enough to defeat the previous two mentioned. That brought the question of who was stronger between the two, and the answer was very clear to Naruto. It was Akino. Pure and simple. While she was just like Kaneko, except he didn't know what she was hiding about herself. Ignoring that, he could see that Akino's wizardry rivaled Rias, but that's just where the comparison ended. Rias had great magic, but her close-range skills were so pitiful that when scaled to her magic, it was worrying. Akino, on the other hand, was not only a powerful sorceress, she was nimble, strong, and had experience with martial arts. He had seen her practicing with a Naginata once, and she was quite good actually, and that was by shinobi standards. She had technique, but lacked the physical capabilities to make her a true threat. It hurt him to think this, but Rias was pathetic. All she had were her genes. She hardly if ever trained. After they started dating, he made note of how much time she spent online going through anime-related items, and watching anime, and reading manga. It was painful for him, which is why he pretended to be Chiyuni for a while, and got her to practice swords with him. It made him happy to see her applying what she learned in one of her battles, but it wasn't enough. He knew it. He knew it very well. His heart felt heavy as he looked at the sky, swearing to train the group in the event that he is revealed. If they still accept him, that is. Even if they don't, the last 2 years were something that were really special to him, so they had his protection, whether they liked it or not. The ones she will be fighting are likely hundreds of years old, smart, and are highly experienced. Evident by how they managed to sneak under her nose for over a year, but not his. He may no longer be a censor, but the training drilled into him as a child emerged once more. He noticed the slightest of changes and moved to investigate, track and record. It took him a while, as he had his ninja powers sealed away, but he was able to complete the mission. He had finally gathered enough evidence to make a claim. He then passed it off to Rias as, I saw some weird dude with wings. Not like yours. More like a chicken. He presented evidence with items like feathers. Naruto shook it off for now, and ran to catch up with Issei, to accost him to having a bowl of ramen with him. Some time had passed since the events earlier, and Naruto stared at his steaming noodles. Issei, yeah? Acting on your feelings is perfectly okay, but please be careful, and take care to think before you jump. Issei shifted under his stool uncomfortably at the sudden change in tone. Understood. Issei responded with conviction, despite not knowing what had brought this on. Issei watched Naruto inhale yet another bowl of ramen. Naruto, you wouldn't happen to be the great devourer, would you? Don't be ridiculous. Naruto shoved more noodles into his already fattened cheeks, like a squirrel. Issei raised an eyebrow at the fat-cheeked blonde. How the hell is he able to chew that much food without spitting it out? His confusion was clear and palpable. The Red Dragon Emperor shook his head and went back to his own bowl of steaming goodness. He clenched his teeth slightly as he contemplated asking a question that could end up making Naruto laugh at him again. Naruto, I'm your bro, right? I can ask more embarrassing questions, right? Naruto swallowed his bolus and looked at his companion, curiosity present in his eyes. Yeah, man. Go ahead, I'll do my best to answer. Issei's cheeks reddened slightly as he looked down to his feet. You see, spit it out already. My ramen's getting cold. Naruto hissed coldly, causing Issei to flinch. Please explain dating, he replied in a shy manner. Well, that's not what I expected. Now where to start? Dang it, there's so many things I could say. Calm down, Uzumaki. Your bro needs you. Focus. Huh? Naruto scratched his cheek in discomfort before looking back at his bowl of ramen. He stirred up the noodles and tear-filled broth, searching for the best words to use to answer his bro's questions. He cleared his throat and began. So you see, Issei, dating is a courtship ritual between creatures that allows for the selection of adequate naughty partners. Well, it's just two or more people in a neutral, inoffensive location, doing something none of them want to do whilst masking their own degenerating self-doubts. Naruto explained in a careful yet proud manner. What? Issei was lost. It's a little hard to date, but let me tell you this. The worst thing to do is to be straightforward and honest about how you feel about the other person. Just do them small favors and slowly befriend them for a few years, then watch them run off and chase some dude with a duck haircut. Naruto had a resentful look on his face. What? Issei blinked, tilting his head and watching Naruto's face display displeasure, as if he had swallowed something bitter. Yeah. I mean, the best way to ask your crush out, just look her in the eye once, then wait a few years and watch her run after an emo dude with a duck haircut. Then after that, watch in horror as her head rolls to your feet while surrounded by mirrors made of ice. Do you need a hug? Issei was completely at a loss of what to do, so the only thing he could offer was comfort. No, I'm good. Using pretty boys, man. They get all the girls and leave nothing for us. When are we ever gonna get girlfriends? He wailed dramatically, drawing eyes to the pair. Naruto sobs and Issei waved his hands around in panic. Whoa, man! Don't cry. You have a beautiful girlfriend. Remember her? Big boobs, crazy figure, nice butt and all that jazz with nice red hair? Issei was ready to drool at Rias' banging bod, but held himself back so that he would not violate the bro code. What? No, wait, don't lie to me. Issei palmed his face and let out a troubled sigh as he watched his companion recover. Issei reached into Naruto's left pocket, inserted the password, and went through his contacts. He even has her on speed dial. Issei suppressed another sigh. He handed the phone back, to which Naruto received it with a curious look. He pushed it onto his ear. Hello, girlfriend. Naru, what's up, miss me already? He had a surprised Pikachu look on his face. Just wanted to confirm you're my girlfriend, right? Yeah. It's been that way since like 2 years ago, so I'm not tripping. Naruto, don't do drugs. The line was cut. With Rias, the crimson-haired devil scratched her temple, wondering what had just happened. Her queen placed a cup of tea in front of her, which she did not notice. Akino took note of this and gave her best friend a worried gaze. Rias? Oh, sorry. Naruto is high again. Again? Akino tilted her head in confusion, not recalling any instance of Naruto being under the influence of weed. Well, no. He is just being him. Rias sighed in exasperation. Boys. She shook her head as both she and Akino broke out into giggles. Back with the boys. Can't believe you got me to help you prank call Yaes. Issei's sweat dropped, looking at Naruto slide his phone back into his pocket. Hey man, pranks are awesome. Also wanted to hear a devilish voice. That bird fire as hell. Or should I say bat? Naruto rubbed his chin in contemplation. His eyes widened slightly. And speaking birds. Bats, tell me, you got one already? Well, I met this really cute nun. So cute, I can't fantasize doing the good stuff in any way. Don't tell Bucho. Issei looked like he was both about to panic and break out into perverted giggles. His panic subsided as he raised an eyebrow at Naruto's lack of surprise. The blonde seemed rather suspicious. As long as you don't tell Rias about my stash, he responded, ignoring the inquisitive stare he was getting from the devil. That girl Asia, was it? She's pretty cute. I'ma be a good bro and give you advice, he said, turning to Issei, ignoring the boy's gaping mouth. If she likes you, she won't mind just chilling on the couch, watching T.V with you. If she always insists on dates, then tread carefully. You wouldn't do this, but I'ma warn you anyways, don't rush to naughty stuff, It's a cliché saying, but it's important. Focus on the relationship first, Naruto explained to his perverted companion. Also remember, when you have naughty staff and she doesn't juice, you didn't use her, she used you. Thanks for the info, but then, you saw. Yup. She was cute, Naruto admitted and repeated. And no, I wasn't following you or anything. I have better things to do, like you know. Squeezing my girl's buns? Naruto giggled lecherously, making groping motions and emphasizing my girl. Issei looked like he wanted to strangle someone. I'll show you, bastard, he hissed spitefully, clenching his fists till they turned pale. You can show me later, dude. Wanna come over for some games? I got FIFA, he invited, casually dismissing the hostility present in Issei's voice. Issei sighed. Can't, man. I got work tonight, he stated in a defeated manner. Sucks for you, man. Well, your clients can't be that bad. Maybe you'll find an interesting one. Maybe one wants to be a magical girl and dresses like one. That's adorable. The man looks like the Hulk. Nani? Yeah, and there is this one guy who frequently summons Kaneko and makes her carry him like a princess. Nani? Naruto's tone was more aggressive this time. Mind giving me his address? Oh, hell no. I ain't letting you murder one of my clients. Hey, I won't kill him. I certainly won't tickle him either. Naruto smiled innocently as they walked out of the stand. Nah-uh. Who do you think is gonna suffer? The guy everyone knows is a sociopath? Or the guy who knows the guy is a sociopath but gives him the details anyways? Nah, bruh. Nah. Hey! I ain't a sociopath. He felt Issei's dry stare boring a hole into the back of his head. Nope. I ain't a sociopath. Sorry. Issei drawled, causing Naruto to scowl. Well, whatever, man. Have fun turning the guy into a magical girl. Naruto waved as he began walking away in the direction of his apartment. Yeah, well, at least I can see Bucho one more time, unlike you. His answer was a middle finger from the retreating blonde. That guy, man. Issei chuckled lightly before moving to his bike and rode off to his new client's apartment. He moved up the stairs, found the door, and raised his hand, shaping it into a partial knuckle. He paused. A smell Issei recognized very well slammed into his nose. It was full of iron, almost like the day he was turned into a devil. What's going on in there? He thought, feeling greatly unsettled as he stared at the door. Something was off, very off. As Naruto always said, if it feels wrong, then bitch out. If you can't bitch out, then bitch out. God damn it, Naruto. Your advice doesn't make sense. The door suddenly opened invitingly, but something was still off. Why was there a goat's head on the kitchen counter? The apartment didn't look off in the slightest. It was what you would expect from the typical bachelor. Naruto once said, ever wondered why black people always survive in Western horror movies? Easy, run, bitch. Run, dot. Issei's curiosity overpowered him, and he proceeded to walk into the house, and the door swiftly closed behind him. Hello? He called out nervously. Why the use did I get in? He chastised himself viciously but kept his guard up. The room was dimly lit, making it seem like the iconic horror movie setting. Issei moved to the right, an angle that was blocked by the door, and felt something wet on his shoe. The smell plus the moisture on my feet. That head over there isn't even bleeding. Issei became nervous and bumped into something, immediately something wet smearing itself onto his cheek, wetting his clothes and making them stick to his skin. His enhanced senses brought the stimulus in like a train. Strong iron. Issei turned to face what was oozing the liquid. He could feel the bile building up in his throat and could barely suppress retroperistalsis. Issei then began shaking uncontrollably, eyes leaping out of his sockets and rivers of sweat flowing from his pores. The thing wasn't a thing. It was human, or at least looked like it was. The corpse was brutally mutilated and hung from the ceiling, with blood dripping from its injuries. The blood was still warm. It was a trap. What the dash? With Naruto. Shit? Naruto questioned. Someone was in his apartment, and it most definitely wasn't Rias. That girl always teleported in, and seemed to have an aversion to opening his door for some weird reason. Whoever was inside knew what they were doing but were careless. The door wasn't damaged in any way, but the slip of paper that he always placed on his door's hinge had fallen off. They also placed a piece of graphite on one of the hinges, so that it would break every time someone opened the door, leaving fine dust on the ground. There it was, the graphite. Then, there were very light traces of blood between the cracks that an untrained eye would miss easily even if they brought their faces close to the cracks. He could see hair as well. Something was very wrong, and it seemed his apartment may have been targeted specifically. Interesting, that crack wasn't there when he left. The chipped molar wasn't there. Was that vapor on that glass pane? No one lived in that room. Naruto considered leaving the apartment building and going elsewhere, but he couldn't because he had treasures in his apartment. treasures that could expose his status as Rias Gremory's boyfriend, and also contained a journal that contained incomplete seals he was still working on. He was currently attempting to recreate the narration and notes on that were inside. They were far too valuable to be lost. Even without his Tuki, Naruto could still take bullets, though they'd leave a light bruises on his skin. Naruto weighed his options carefully, but whatever was in there was likely tied to the supernatural, so the case may be different, but that didn't matter much. His healing factor was still quick even without his chakra. He weighed his options, and felt that dealing with the threat was the best option. Naruto took his bag off, and cut one of the straps off with a pocket knife. He then used his hand to scoop some dirt from nearby potted plants, and poured said dirt into his backpack, whilst holding the bag by the middle, as if choking someone. He then took the strap and tied it around the neck, before bringing down its flap over the rounded top, giving the shape of a head. He then used his knife to lightly poke holes into the top of the flap, then inserted plant leaves that would make the head look like it had spiky hair. A makeshift dummy. Night had fallen, and the inside of his domain wasn't lit, so this had a high chance of succeeding given the low light. He carefully picked up the dummy, and moved to the door. Showtime. Click. Swoosh. Naruto tossed it in. Bang. Bang. It was torn apart immediately. Assailant, likely human. An exorcist. Naruto used the dust as cover and moved into the room swiftly, snatching some dirt out of the air, taking advantage of the confusion caused by the decoy. Naruto instantly had the advantage. He already knew where the enemy was. Naruto threw the dirt right into the gaunt man's eyes. Ugh! You devil-worshipping mother dash. He felt his nose caving in as Naruto drove an elbow into his face. His nose being damaged caused his eyes to water up, further blinding him. His hands reflexively let go of the gun as they made it to cover his nose. He realized his mistake and scrambled for another weapon in a fluster. It was already too late. The god of shinobi was already upon him. Naruto grabbed his arm and judo flipped him with one hand before twisting it, causing the man to howl in pain. Use Y dash. Naruto slammed his heel into the man's spine before snatching the gun from the floor and shooting out the man's other limbs. Child! He screamed, desperately trying to wrestle his functioning arm out of Naruto's grip and distance himself from his enemy. You aren't going anywhere. Who sent you? Naruto asked coldly. None of your food dash. Arg. One of his fingers were bent in an unnatural position. Who are you affiliated with? Did the church approve of this? Go to HARHHHHHH. Another pained scream was released by the exorcist. As his mouth opened, 2 round pills were shoved into his mouth. Naruto began skinning him and pouring vinegar from the packs he typically had in one of his pockets. Naruto ignored his screams and continued playing with his prey to his heart's content. The pills he forced into the man's mouth stopped bleeding and prevented the consumer from falling unconscious. What a mouth you have! You must be a stray. Stop resisting already and spill that shit. I want to go to sleep. Naruto's eye twitched in annoyance as he let go of the man. The man began using everything he could to get away from the horrifying blonde. His shoulders, his chin, his knees, his teeth were used to drag his body away from the scene, managing to make it out the door. He felt saved. He was out of that hellhole. He couldn't understand why he wasn't losing blood anymore, but that didn't matter. He had an opportunity to get out of there and report to his superiors. They would reward him for bringing information on an extremely dangerous enemy. He didn't get far. His eyes widened in horror as he felt hands latching onto his ankles and dragging him back. No! No, 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 no! The door closed ominously, muffling the man's horrified screams. Naruto had returned. All he brought was a chair, rope, a jar of water, and a towel. The man felt arms going under his legs and struggled to realize he was in a princess carry, but his struggle was futile. He felt him going upside down before stopping at an angle and felt ropes securing him. His vision was completely cut off and breathing became difficult as the towel was tossed over his face. He tried to shake it off, but his head too unfortunately was secured. I consider myself merciful, dude. I may let you go if you tell me what I want. He couldn't betray his superiors. If he endured this, then perhaps he would get a chance to bed Rainier, the perfect. Naruto was flicked off. Have it your way. Naruto tipped the jar, pouring copious amounts of water onto his clothed face. The man began thrashing about as he felt water slipping into his body through his navel cavity. He soon felt water entering his lungs and felt as if he were drowning. He then felt the air being forced out of his body, as he felt the great force of a fist pounding away at his gut. He realized in horror that he couldn't fall unconscious, so he had to take the full brunt. He then tried to suppress a scream as one of his toenails were ripped off. ARRGHHH. Water slipped into his throat, making it feel like it was lit on fire just like his abused navel cavity. He heard a comforting voice. The lights were turned on suddenly, forcing the man to close his eyes under the towel, getting his eyebrows stuck inside his eye. He squirmed, trying to get the wretched thing off. This can be all over. You just have to do one thing, it whispered gently. He felt the towel being removed from his face, his restraints undone, and he was caught gently as he immediately began coughing violently. Naruto waited patiently, watching him expel as much water as he can. It can keep going, you know? I have school tomorrow. You probably have work tomorrow as well. I wouldn't mind keeping this up. Your screams are pleasant, way better than the fine bitches at school. Naruto gave the man a bemused smile. And no. Pee-pee, please. I beg, why you? Came his raspy voice as he broke down, weeping. He couldn't endure it anymore. Of course. But tell me what I want first or else. Naruto directed his killing intent to the nearly broken man. The man felt shivers down his spine and his eyes widened in horror as he experienced thousands upon thousands of ways his life could be ended. It was maddening. He didn't want to die. He wanted to escape anywhere but here, and so the bird sang. I see. So you were banished, huh? These fallen angels could be troublesome. Guess I won't have to worry much since they all have single pairs of wings. The ninja mused. Please, let me go. Okay. Naruto shrugged easily and moved to help the man. The exorcist felt a smile creeping on his face. He would live. He could escape with his Lee. Swelch. A knife had penetrated his brain from the bottom of his chin. Naruto shoved another one into his heart, ignoring the blood splattering on his walls and pooling onto his floor. Nothing Rias magic couldn't fix, he shrugged. Liar, he mouthed before expiring. Didn't lie, dude. I said I'd end this as soon as you spilled the beans. He yawned. Besides, one who takes lives for no reason has no right to beg for theirs. He continued in a frighteningly plain voice as he flicked his knife. I am gonna need a new shirt. He pouted, stepping on the corpse, walking over to the towel to wipe his hands of blood. He then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, which had miraculously not fallen out of his pocket during the very brief confrontation. He dialed the number. Naruto-kun, hey, what's up, naughty Staffy? Oh, you know, work. Just gonna go around and patrol my territory and stuff. That's good. I am sure a weirdo like you didn't call just to say hi. What do you want to confirm, if I'm your girlfriend again? Nah, don't be ridiculous. Just calling to tell you about how an exorcist broke into my house and tried kill Dash. A familiar magic circle erupted right next to him, and Rias appeared with magic circles on her hands, ready for a fight. Her face had a strong, serious expression that oozed massive amounts of hostility. Relax, I already took care of it. Took care? She looked at him in bewilderment. She then realized that a liquid was seeping through her shoes into her socks. The magic circles disappeared from her hands as she began scanning her environment, locating a gun on the floor, which was commonly used by exorcists, and the corpse of a gaunt man with sandy blonde hair which was partly drenched in blood. Naruto? She questioned in a surprised, meek and horrified voice as she noted the damage done to the man's corpse. Heavy bruises, friction burns likely caused by the cut rope on his side, mangled fingers, peeled skin, multiple stab wounds, and a knife buried into his chin. This was something she was supposed to be desensitized to. It was a necessity given how she had to deal with the horrors caused by her kind inflicted onto humanity. She was one of Kuoh's governors, its overseers, its protectors, and so she had to be used to it to some extent. It wasn't the mangled corpse that caused fear, or rather, the one she thought was incapable of hurting a fly. There he was. Naruto Uzumaki, the boy she had fallen in love with and frequently visited and got to know him well. He was very sweet. He said the weirdest and the rudest things out there, but he never meant harm. He frequently tried his best to make his friends happy, no matter how difficult it was for him. He made her feel like a normal person who could do whatever she wished instead of the fragile princess she typically treated as. There were lots of things she loved about him. His ability to attract people despite being the opposite of being charismatic, his ability to speak to people's heart and help guide them for better, like how he made Kaneko more comfortable with who she was and lessened her fear of senjutsu. She loved how tolerant he was of people's bad habits and behaviors. She loved how sly he was. The cute tattoos he always insisted belonged to a fox. His tendency to steal her sweets and blame it on an imaginary dog. The adorable look on his face when his cheeks were rubbed. The peaceful look on his face when he was asleep. His inability to hold a grudge. She loved it. She was thankful for it because ever since he entered her life, he made her feel happier. He made her and her peerage closer as they all had the same goal. Protect him. Her peerage always fought to protect her and not themselves, and she fought to protect them and not herself. That parallel caused a gap between them, and Naruto just walked in and forced the gap to close, making them really feel like a family. She loved him so, and she would continue even if he became a wrinkly, grumpy old man. She considered him a hero, one who always sought to give and not take. If his life could be spared and his happiness, she would give her own happiness up. Of course, There were several things she disliked about him, like how he would blatantly flirt with Akino in front of her, or how lecherous he was. But still, she wasn't as bothered as she should have been. Perhaps it was what she was taught as a child, or perhaps she was that accepting and tolerant of his behavior. She didn't think she would oppose if he went after Akino. It was confusing. Her emotions were a mess. There she was staring at him in muted horror. This one scene was completely contrary to what she knew about him, or what she thought she knew about him. His demeanor was in likeness with one someone would have on a normal Saturday night. No regrets. Not disturbed in the slightest. How could he be capable of doing such? That exorcist did not die peacefully, that much was clear. Naruto. It was him. No, it can't possibly be him. He wouldn't do this. She denied it with all her might until a memory appeared. I sometimes feel as though everything I love will be swallowed up by the world. I refuse to stand and watch anymore. I refuse to point fingers and blame misfortune. I refuse to allow what I have to be taken again. I will protect you, Rias, whether you want it or not. If I am seen as a monster and rejected everywhere I go, then so be it. It doesn't matter where I am. Even if I am chained to the deepest pits of hell, I will fight. He decided to be a monster. But why? Naruto, why won't you confide in me? She reached out and touched his warm cheeks and gently stroked them, thinking of what he had said that time. They had been watching anime at the time, so she didn't take him seriously, but now Rias realized how little she knew of him. It was frustrating. Are you in the state of mind to hear the report of what I extracted from him? He asked, looking away from his girlfriend, feeling great shame that he had let her see a far darker side of him. A ruthless man who wasn't bothered by the suffering of those who he didn't consider precious. Make no mistake. He was cold, not cruel. He did everything he did because of necessity. He needed information to make sure his remaining friends were safe. How? How did you do this? Decoy. He pointed at his ruined pack. Eyes. He pointed at the dirt on the floor, then at the man's nose. Disarmed and immobilized. He finished, sighing quietly, looking at his troubled girlfriend. Naruto, thank you. Thank you for coming back to me. She pulled him into a tight hug, ignoring the blood smearing onto her uniform. Even if this situation brought questions about his ethics, he was still the same person she fell for. It's still Naruto. She held him closely, nuzzling her face into his chest. She was disturbed, yes, but she was happy he was alive. Exorcists were known to be very aggressive to people associated with devils, so Naruto definitely didn't attack him. But how did they find out? Magic circles lit up around the room, and the room was cleaned. Let's take a shower. Rias grabbed Naruto and dragged him towards the bathroom. Together? That's new. Can't guarantee things won't slip into places, you know. Remember what happened last time I saw your birthday suit? Things slipping into me won't be a problem. She winked, causing his face to gain a light tint of red. She was already naked, discarding her undergarments with ease, and turned on the showerhead, turning to him, exposing her naked self to him, her perfect, porcelain-like skin with an extremely erotic figure. He felt invited. Come on! I'm sure a perv like you wants to jump in. Lose the clothes and join me. Don't tell me La Cobra is tiny. She mocked. Ollie! Naruto didn't waste any more time and just yanked his pants down, ignoring the feeling of his stiffened rod being forcefully pulled down, and so he entered what he considered heaven itself. A shower with Rias Gremory. Hey, got my back? She asked as she turned away from him, hiding a blush creeping onto her face. Oh no, lady, not today. He grabbed her and turned her in his direction. He then took a moment to appreciate the redhead goddess in his arms. Her long luscious hair, her pink full lips, full watermelons, heart-shaped butt, and her wonderful gem-like eyes. His was losing reason, and so he began. He brought his face close to hers, and she accepted. They wrestled for dominance, skillfully manipulating their tongues to dominate their partner. Naruto hands found their way onto her plump watermelons, and gently massages them, relishing their absurd softness. On! She whimpered into his mouth. She then moved and ground her hip against the now named La Cobra, and it twitched in excitement. Rias nether lips reciprocating and began salivating at the thought of devouring the girthy treat. At this point, the water was long forgotten. They were in their own little world, and no longer required words to communicate. They had long since gotten used to each other's habits, could read each other's feelings with great accuracy based purely in body language. She called out to him, and he responded. He asked her to leave it to him, and she agreed. His hand moved away from her watermelon and slowly trailed down her watermelons and rested on her pelvis. She was completely, and so his hand dove in and gently played with her folds. His index and ring finger skillfully traced her labia whilst his middle inserted itself into her opening. His thumb then teased and rubbed her clit, sending electric shots through her body. Rias whimpered sensually, feeling his digits move independently from each other. That's when she felt it. La Cobra was between her thighs and his hips slowly thrust back and forth, allowing Naruto to savor the soft warmth of her thighs. The way his member rubbed against her nether regions got her crazy. He was teasing her and relishing in her frustration. She gave a small glare, noticing the cheeky and proud smile on his face. She then tightened her thighs, as if challenging him. No effect. He was rock hard. She couldn't do anything to him. He smacked her, and kissed her cheek. That's enough play for today. Our little kitten is waiting for us. He chuckled lightly, causing Ria's face to flare up. Eep! Could be heard from outside the door. Good thing he instinctively closed it, or that would have been awkward. Well, actually, he didn't close it all the way, which was how he spotted her peeping. So now there they were in Naruto's room, fully dressed with an awkward silence hanging about. Well, both girls were just silent from embarrassment, whilst Naruto was lightly snickering at their expense. Okay, you two, time to get down to business. I am sure Nico-chan would visit me to check on me, but it wouldn't be this late. He started the topic, hoping to break the awkward silence between the two. They appreciated it. Yes. Boob Brain got attacked by a stray exorcist, she reported, causing Naruto to raise an eyebrow in mild interest whilst Rias widened her eyes. How'd it go? Was the enemy terminated or captured, or did he escape? He asked, looking into the petite girl's eyes. He escaped. She lowered her head in shame. I see. Naruto nodded before turning to his girlfriend. I suppose it's about time I make my report. And so Naruto explained the details he had managed to extract from the now-deceased stray exorcist, with each detail causing both Rias and Kaneko to frown. To think they'd be aiming to steal sacred gear. Rias nipped at her lip lightly. Then why did they move to kill Issei? She wondered aloud. Maybe the boss changed orders from killing sacred gear possessors to capture and extract them. Kaneko contributed, earning a head rub from the blonde. That is a very likely scenario, which brings up the question, why would they want sacred gears? Rias placed her fist under her chin in thought. Pretty simple, really. They must be trying to enhance themselves for a cause. These dudes want to pick a fight with someone. Naruto yawned, putting one of his hands under his shirt and rubbing his stomach. His relaxation lowered the tension that could be felt by the two devils as the news that they were treading close to a battle. Another possibility is that they are just rowdy kids who want their superiors to acknowledge them, and hence they ended up deciding that collecting sacred gears is for the good of their race. Naruto added another possible point. But still, they surely realized doing such in devil territory could be perceived as an act of aggression. Things could escalate quickly and end up as a full-blown war. Rias frowned, placing her knuckle over her mouth. Killing our clients and attacking one of our group, Kaneko said with an irritated look on her face. Well? Naruto clapped, standing up. Doesn't matter what their agenda is, the fact that they are threatening you and sent some of their people to kill clients, and you devils, means they are asking for it. Naruto pointed out. It's now your duty to eliminate them before they cause a full-blown war. He continued. True dat. Kaneko agreed. I see. Rias sighed. Naruto moved behind her and gently rubbed her shoulders, and she gave him a look of appreciation. Her expression degraded, looking to the floor, clenching her fist tightly. Naruto, I'm sorry, but could you distance yourself from us? Well, unless it's an emergency. Both Rias and Kaneko gained despondent looks. Sure, he shrugged. Not like it's your fault or anything. I'll cheer for you, but you better come back without any scars, or I'll brutally spank you all. Except for Kiba, because that's very gay. They both nodded and moved to conjure a magic circle. Some advice for you too. Naruto called out, making them stop and turn to him with curiosity. Kaneko, he addressed the petite girl first. Don't fight the fallen. You will be at a severe disadvantage due to their maneuverability and range. You are more suited for fighting in small spaces, as your cat abilities give you great agility, so get some exorcists in one building and attack them. Have Kiba help you with that, he advised the girl, who paused before nodding slowly. Rias, you have poor hand-to-hand combat prowess, but your strength is your wizardry. The fallen will prefer staying at range where they'll be at a disadvantage. Avoid using that ball of energy you used against that stray earlier. I feel that it's slow, and its charging time will put you at a disadvantage. If you plan on doing a sneak attack, the gravity field it generates will give you away. Since the ceremony will occur in a couple of days, it's imperative you attack when they think they have won. Feign ignorance for now, and bide your time. That Rainier will be the one to receive the twilight healing, so she will be occupied in the church. The other three will be patrolling the vicinity, so set traps, and take them out one by one. He continued giving advice, ignoring the agape looks they were giving him. Well, I am just a low-tier human, so you can ignore my advice and stuff. He chuckled slightly. No. Thanks. Rias gave him a beautiful smile before leaning in to give him a peck on the lips. Thanks, senpai. Kaneko reached out and wrapped her arms around his frame. He smiled and hugged her back before gently stroking her head. "Show me your ears," he requested. White cat ears appeared atop her head. "Catgirls rock. Can't believe I won't see these babies for a few days," he whined, getting a light blow to his gut in response. It didn't have enough force to harm even a normal human, so it was playful. Naruto looked down and saw the girl giving him a look full of affection. "You better behave yourself while we are gonna senpai, or else I won't let you touch them, Naya," she replied cutely. Naruto's cheeks reddened slightly at how adorable she was. "No promises, Nico-chan," rubbing her ears a few more times before parting from them. Rias smiled at the scene and called Kaneko over. "Let us go, Kaneko." "Yes." They waved as a magic circle appeared below them and whisked them away. "Now then." Naruto moved his bed away from its original position before moving an intelligently concealed loose plank away. He then stuck his hand into the gap and extracted a case. He opened it and pulled a vial with a label and had a clear fluid from the case's contents before returning everything where it all was. "Time for a bit of meddling," he said, as he got his Fuinjutsu notebook that only contained completed seals. He paged through the book before finding the page he desired. It had the kanji for storage at its center and was surrounded by various marks. Naruto took the vial and stripped off the label, revealing a concealed pack of what appeared to be blood. Naruto tapped the pack and all its blood preservation mechanism ceased to function. He tore it open and rubbed the blood on the storage seal. Puff! A traditional long-sleeved version of the Anbu Black Ops uniform, a black cloak, a pair of pouches, and a bear mask with a white wig attached appeared. Naruto immediately changed into his attire and threw the cloak's black hood over his head. He left his apartment and headed for the church. Naruto stood at a distance, carefully watching and noting any activity occurring in the church's vicinity. He noticed a barrier and people seemingly entering the church for a nighttime service, but he wasn't fooled. No fallen angels in the airspace, nor could he detect any traps, so he carefully moved into enemy territory. He stepped in front of the barrier and reached into his pouch and pulled out a device that resembled a flashlight. It was a scientific ninja tool that had helped invent back at home that had his or B's chakra sealed into it. Its purpose was to print seals onto objects, even non-tangible ones, allowing non-Fuinjutsu users or non-chakra use capable people to be able to use more common seals. The object worked like a flashlight. Instead of light, however, it transmitted chakra, which would take the shape of the desired seal based on the slip of paper inserted into the slot on its side. Well, the device only worked for certain, less complex seals. Because chakra required an excessive amount of food to generate for normal shinobi, Madara and his army had targeted their supply lines and caused a famine, which caused shinobi to be far more conservative with how they used chakra, which made fighting enemy shinobi and white zetsus all the more difficult. Some minor nations sided with Madara, including the anime-only ones. This led to Naruto visiting Yuzu before the enemy could send Uzumaki descendants to get sealed food supplies left behind by the deceased clan. It turned out the amount of food the Uzumakis had was profound even for a large shinobi army. Once the supplies were secured, they needed to be distributed, and so the device was created. Basically, with the help of the sealing core, Naruto had created a storage dimension that could hold all the supplies, and with the use of his chakra or killer bees, he made it so that only shinobi who fought for the alliance could access it. Since Naruto and B were almost always on the front lines, they couldn't apply the seals to the shinobi army themselves, and so having the device was God-sent. Naruto's version could do more advanced seals, which was the category he needed. He needed an anti-detection seal that suppressed a barrier's detection capabilities. He flashed the seal onto the barrier, and the seal was on top of the barrier. The seal flashed blue before disappearing, allowing Naruto to just walk in without any possibility of being detected by the barrier. Especially one of that level. Naruto found a spot that would conceal him well, and waited there for a short while until the activity died down. Long story short, Naruto had used his torch-like device to place delayed ejector storage seals on their food supplies. The seals would release the fluid that was in that vial on the morning of the day of the ceremony. He also placed exploding tags on weapons he could access. Talk about an explosive surprise. They were set for the night of the ceremony. He was now in bed, lying down like a person who didn't have school the next day. That should make things a little easier for them, he thought as he drifted off to sleep. Next day, same old, same old. Arriving late. Falling asleep in class. Lunch alone. Terrorizing the student council only because their new kid approached him to give him a piece of his mind. Naruto didn't like that, and so he gave them hell. The school day was pretty much uneventful that day. As usual, Naruto stuck to his normal routine of hitting up a random ramen joint and enjoying his favorite dish. Well, today was slightly different in that he had treated himself to an ice pop, relaxing as memories of his time with Jiraiya passed through his mind. Using old bastard, he smiled fondly remembering Jiraiya's goofy and perverted tendencies. Jiraiya was both a harsh teacher and a loving father to Naruto, guiding Naruto through some aspects of life and molding him into an extremely powerful shinobi. Oh, how he wished he could introduce his new friends to him, but that was an impossibility because he was dead. The dead must stay dead. He sighed as he tossed the stick into the can before leaving the convenience store. Naruto felt like fish again, and so he started walking towards his apartment to get his gear until, oh, it was Issei and that girl again. Well, that's not good at all, but... His eyes scanned the area searching for any signs of devils and fallen angels. That's Rias familiar. He recognized the bat-like creature that was sneakily trailing the two. He is in good hands. Naruto shrugged before walking away inconspicuously. Hey, do I really feel like fishing? Should I just treat myself to some sushi? He wondered aloud, reaching for his door. Next day, same old, same old. Same bullshit as the previous day. Naruto felt that he should really get a hobby. His boredom was getting ridiculous at this point. Well, the bright side was that today was the night when it would happen. Rias would gain a new piece, Issei would cry like a baby, and he'd get to see the effects of his liquid. Yay, puff, Umbu uniform, ninja tools and anti-scent pills. A drug invented by the Umbu to combat the Inuzuka senses. Couldn't risk Kaneko catching him now, could he? They all would be more than mad at him for snooping around. His girlfriend reminded him of his mother in a lot of ways. Never upset Kushina Uzumaki. He feared that if his girlfriend caught him, he would suffer some damage that not even his durability could save him from. Naruto watched as both Kaneko and Kiba wrinkled their noses in disgust. The distinct smell of crap wafted through the air as the priests whimper in discomfort. Their pants stained with brown. The chemical used was both a laxative and a slow-acting poison, so the priests were slowly expiring with humiliation present in their hearts. Might have overdosed there. Naruto's sweat dropped, watching Kaneko and Kiba distance themselves from the troubled men. The hell is wrong with all you users? Another priest entered the scene, glaring at his downed subordinates. With Kaneko Kiba. Use it. The priest whispered in annoyance before turning to the two with exaggerated delight. Welcome. It's been so long, dear devil users. The white-haired man raised his arms, giving an unsettling grin. So you came to save Asia? Say, where is that other kid? Hey! Don't tell me he is already down there. What the actual use? The man couldn't hide his frustration. Ugh! He moved to draw his light sword whilst moving his body to dodge the airborne pew. You using strong for a runt. He charged at Kaneko, but was immediately intercepted by Kiba. Clang! Sparks flew as Kiba brought his sword down, engaging the priest in a sword fight with the sound of metal ringing loudly as they clashed, searching for dominance. The priest grinned before kicking Kiba in the chest, sending him sailing through the air then ducking under a roundhouse, courtesy of Kaneko. The girl skillfully evaded a multitude of overhead and side slashes, moving closer to the priest as time passed. Kaneko then arrested his wrist, clutched it tightly, and went to sock him in the face, but was forced to disengage with a backflip. Take this bitch! The crazed man roared, raising his gun, and proceeded to pull the trigger multiple times. Kaneko watched his body carefully, predicted where he would aim, and in response used her cat-like movement abilities to maneuver around and through the church's pillars and pews. The priest took a step back, dodging a downward slash from Kiba, and before raising his gun, Kaneko arrested the hand holding the Glock before yanking the man downwards. Kiba then moved to decapitate him, but the priest had wisely let go of the sword and draw the other one and guarded his neck. He held in a hiss as he received a knee drive to the face from the cat girl. Back with Naruto. His nose captured the scent of smoke and burnt flesh and feathers. 3 players and a bunch of NPCs have left the game. He chuckled inwardly. Kiba and Kaneko are handling themselves really well, so I don't have to worry about them. Rias and Akino just eliminated the other player. He nodded in satisfaction. He waited till the priest started firing again to mask the sound of his rushing footsteps. The battle was about to conclude, so Naruto felt that he should rush home, in case Rias decided to sneak into his bed again. It would be a headache to explain where he had gone out, so he sprinted as quickly as possible. He moved with speeds that would rival people in a high school's track team. Naruto made it home and immediately resealed his ninja outfit, took a shower, and slipped into his blue onesie pajamas, and with a hood reminiscent of the silly cap he had back home. He felt comfy. Well, I feel like a ninja again. He yawned before closing his eyes. A few moments later he felt a softness he was very well acquainted to push into his back. Did you win, dear? Oh, sorry. Did I wake you? You did. But I am happy that you are here. He turned and hugged her naked body into his before nuzzling up against the nape of her neck. I'll be inspecting your form in the morning. I'd better not find anything. He growled, making Rias giggle. No scars here, man, relax. She snorted, feeling right at home in arms. We won. And we got a new family member. She smiled as she felt his arms tighten around her. Really? Is she cute? He was pinched. Me, Kaneko, and Akino aren't enough for you, aren't we? What? He feigned ignorance, sweating slightly. What kind of question is that? He asked, for the first time in a long time, displaying nervous behavior. We are going to have a long discussion about our relationships and how we are going to move forward, mister. She latched onto his ear and pulled. No effect again. Strange. Yes, ma'am. He sighed a little despondently. Hey, Rias. Yeah? Her yawning, muffled voice replied. Once upon a time, there was this kid. He was poor as shit but got the opportunity to work and earn something for himself. He made a hefty sum and got real nice chickets, but misfortune happened. One of his places got lit on fire and stuff. But he didn't have enough cash to fix it, so it fell apart and stuff. Light snores invaded his ears. Rude girl. Here I am trying to give you a peek at my life. He sighed before bringing his hand up and stroking her crimson hair. I love you. His eyes closed, taking him into the land of dreams. A single eye opened in the darkness. I love you too, you idiot. Rhea smiled before taking a moment to think. Just think, the route we seem to be getting dragged to. Could it work? Can I trust and believe in him without question? How will I deal with jealousy? A myriad of thoughts floated through her mind. She needed an answer quickly because while she had a lot of time, he didn't. If she never got the opportunity to turn him into a devil, then he would die relatively soon. Such was the nature of long-lived races. A human's life was but a mere moment to them. Naruto always joked about being turned into a devil, but would he want to be one when the opportunity came? Of course he would. Would he really? She wouldn't force him if he refused but instead support him till the end. But that brought the question. Why was she doubting him so much? Did the scene she came into really shake her core and idea of who Naruto was? The story she had heard bothered her greatly. She just didn't understand what it was, but she asked herself. Who is Uzumaki Naruto? The multi-layered plan he used on the stray exorcist, which was executed perfectly. Extremely uncommon amongst humans, and even among supernatural creatures. When he walked into their battle with Visser, he didn't show any signs of fear or worry. The fact that he sometimes acted as their club's life advisor, almost like he had suffered several horrors and got desensitized to them. He easily figured out their weaknesses despite only seeing them fight once, and advised them on how they could effectively eliminate the enemy. She heard him release a pained whimper. A nightmare? She moved her hand and slipped it under his hood and stroked his hair, comforting him. He was in a heavily depressed state when he first summoned her. His aversion to topics related to war, his ability to quickly cheek his situations and find solutions. Was he exposed to the horrors of war as a child? She questioned, furrowing her brow. There had been no major incidents in the past decade in the U.S. as far as she could recall. Was he really from the U.S.? Or was he perhaps engaged in an unnegotiated conflict, between cults perhaps? She was confused. He was an enigma, but in the end, she decided to trust her gut. She just knew he was human and could guarantee that he never actually had any real contact with the supernatural apart from witnessing phenomena and creatures. She remembered how cute he was when he bombarded her with all sorts of questions about the supernatural world, magic and the like. The smile he had when he was with her. With him. It would be protected at all costs. So devilkind and other creatures must stay far away from him, so he could maintain as much normality as he could. Tears began flowing from her eyes, thinking about her engagement. Hues of orange invaded the slumbering boy's shut eye. They streamed in through his curtains, attacking the folds that guarded his eyes in an attempt to wake him. They succeeded. It was just another morning for Uzumaki Naruto, with him waking up feeling like he should complete the morning rituals that Jiraiya forced on him. He immediately got off his bed, as usual, and then moved to a clearer side of the room and plopped down onto the floor. He crossed his legs over each other and brought his fists together, right above his feet into the meditative stance Kurama had taught him whilst instructing him in achieving sage mode. His breathing slowed and thoughts faded, his mind blank as he focused and worked to calm his mind in preparation for what was to come. This Sunday's meditation was a little different from what he was used to. He could hear the distant chirping of birds, the gentle flow of a nearby stream, croaking toads, some cicadas, the low guttural sounds of trucks and idle chatter from the youth that frequented a nearby street. What was the difference that irked him then? There were no noisy neighbors to give him headaches as he dived into his little world. Naruto sat motionless, controlling his breathing and clearing his mind. The silence was quite loud to the point that it rivaled that of a graveyard. Sounds of light, controlled breathing invaded the room. That, and the sounds of clicking buttons from a nearby room, but they were so quiet they were insignificant to him. A few minutes passed and Naruto pondered about what could have happened to the noises he was used to hearing in the morning. Good thing he convinced Rias to use magic to soundproof his room at night. He didn't need to be reminded that he still hasn't taken that stage with his babe. The silence in the morning bothered him slightly, but his stoic demeanor didn't betray him. Oh yeah, they're dead? He suddenly remembered, getting up from his meditative posture before beginning to do a few stretching exercises. After that was done, he turned to his bed and noted that Rias was gone, to which he just shrugged off as a normal occurrence. Devils had devil duties after all. He then moved to make his bed, folding up the blankets, straightening any creases on his sheets, and fluffed his pillow before placing it down in the appropriate place. As he moved towards his door, the sound of buttons being pressed and the sounds of guns being fired became louder. Wonder who that is? He yawned slightly as he proceeded towards the door. He opened the door and stepped out of his room, rubbing his eye and yawning once. Senpai, make me breakfast. Kaneko was seated on the floor, facing his television with a controller in her hands. On the screen was the popular first-person shooter, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. She was dressed in a manner that screamed, "Perfect girlfriend!" which was a large t-shirt and pink panties. She wasn't attempting to hide them from him in any way, given how her knee was up to her chest as she played, pulling the tee back revealing her underwear. She hadn't even reacted or tried to make a change in her posture when she heard him open the door. Both her ears and tails were out, as well as if attempting to provoke him into attacking her, with how the ears twitched and the tail swayed around in a rather seductive manner. It was working. Naruto felt his morning would get harder. You can have this sausage. He pointed at his erect member. The cat girl's cheeks flushed slightly as she turned to regard him with a weak glare. Pervert, she chastised softly as she turned back to her game, skillfully manipulating the buttons on her controller, shooting down enemy after enemy. She noticed a shadow coming over her, but did nothing to intercept its castor, but instead moved her thumb towards the pause button. Naruto had moved behind her and slid one of his arms under her knees and the other under her back and lift her into a princess carry. She hurriedly pressed the pause button before tilting her head to give a weak glare at the offender. I was playing, she protested, nestled in his arms as they moved into the kitchen area. Yes, you were, he replied easily as he set her down and reached into one of the drawers and handed her a kitchen knife. A cutting board with various vegetables on it was placed in front of her. Kaneko didn't need to be told what to do, so she touted her knife skills by slicing up and dicing the veggies into perfect, thin cubes. Knife work was something Naruto had taught her a while back, a time when she wanted to learn how to make sashimi. Naruto knew how, and Rias happened to want to have the peerage and Naruto to have a good relationship. He and Kaneko didn't start well at all. He had tried to take an eclair off her plate and ended up slipping and sticking his head into her skirt. It was obvious it took all the girl had not to punt him across the room. He was human, and it was obvious to all observers that it was an accident. Their relationship was a little stiff, but it slowly improved as they had one thing in common: they wanted to help Rias be happy, and that led to them hanging out. This quickly escalated into a good friendship where both parties were willing to inconvenience themselves for the sake of the other, with Naruto willing to go fishing with her and tutoring her when he could have been producing content and expanding his skill set, or Kaneko, who could have been training and doing her duties, but she would occasionally come to his house and clean up after him so he wouldn't get in trouble with Rias, and would simmer ramen broth for him. Kaneko grew to admire him as a person as well. Despite what his personality might suggest, his work ethic was extraordinarily high. On the days she went to visit him, she observed him working himself to dirt without displaying much discontent or annoyance, despite having the occasional epic fail. He seemed happy with regards to everything he did and seemed to give it his all. She saw in him someone who valued hard work. Even when gaming and not recording to edit and upload, he would sit down and VOD review his gameplay so he could improve and provide better gameplay for his viewers. He would also spend a significant number of days designing his merchandise, making it look as good as possible so it would be worth every penny spent for the buyers. His ability to stay working was amazing, but another thing she noted was how he constantly tried new things. She was there to witness his first days of learning C, and despite all the duds he ran into, he never once seemed discouraged and continued pushing forward. She felt moved when he presented his first game to her. It was horrible, but still great at the same time. She could feel the dedication he put into it, so she soldiered on, played it in its earlier stages. It eventually evolved into an addictive game that featured a girl that looked suspiciously Rias, but with brown hair and a smaller bust, and a dude that suspiciously looked like Hatsune Miku. Interesting. He worked like a madman, occasionally even forgetting to eat and sleep when he wasn't with members of the peerage or strolling around town, visiting random ramen stands. He didn't obsessively sit and scroll through Instagram feeds as one would expect. Instead, He did what he felt was valuable to him, which seemed to be increasing his skill set. Then, there was his liking for ramen, but it was one of the things that made him unique in a way. To her, he wasn't just a human, he was a superhero of sorts. She saw how much he cared about nature to the point that he would hang around the forest quite often. He would go down to the woods just to meditate, occasionally planting saplings to support the dwindling tree population, and generally avoided harming what was around him without cause, showcasing his rather peaceful nature. She liked him. She felt that she could trust him. She told him about her past and her fears about Senjutsu, and to her surprise he told her, "Meh, don't worry about that Senjutsu shiz. If you go crazy, Papa will stop you. I promise, so don't fear that power. Work with it, become stronger and protect our friends." He gave her a wink. Despite his joking attitude, she could tell that he was very serious. He continued and told her, "You know, an old friend of mine told me that when you feel overwhelming hatred, focus on the love you have for someone." He gave a despondent smile, referring to his mother, unbeknownst to her. She smiled as she finished up cutting the vegetables, and waited for Naruto to finish his preparations. He cracked a dozen eggs into a bowl, and used a fork to whisk till homogenized. If you were to ask Naruto what the most defining features about Kaneko were, he would tell you her resemblance to him and Sasuke. His initial impression of her was just another Avenger who will drive herself over the edge. Well, much to his surprise, he was pretty wrong. He felt wrong about comparing her to him and his rival, given that everyone, as an individual, will react differently to the same situation. Her loss of a sister and sense of abandonment had driven her emotions to the back of her heart, yet she didn't tip over. She took it and did her best to hang on despite the pain. Both he and Sasuke were familiar with the concept of being betrayed by their sibling. With Sasuke it was Itachi, and with Naruto it was Sasuke. If you were to ask him the same question once more, he would tell you her strength. She was fierce, not only in battle but also in life. She didn't let her feelings of betrayal towards her sister harm other people, and Naruto acknowledged that as strength. The power to logically communicate with one's heart was something both he and Sasuke lacked, which led to them committing great atrocities. Examples include when Sasuke found out about the elders' involvement in the extermination of his clan, and ended up not only targeting the Leaf Village, but also harming those who were in no way involved, such as the samurai in the Land of Iron. Or the time Naruto murdered a country's worth of people just to spite Orochimaru, as the snake was directly responsible for the death of a close friend of his grandfather figure, taking his brother away from him and desecrating his lover's corpse. Some were just people who were warped by the snake's inhumane experiments, but most were people who could laugh, cry and smile like him, and he just snuffed them out like the flame on a candle. To him, they weren't people, they were just obstacles that needed to be shoved to the side and destroyed. Perhaps Kaneko was luckier than they were, but still, she was a pretty cool kid in his books. "How'd your battle go?" he asked, retrieving the board covered in veggies, and then tipping its contents into the hot, melted butter. A sizzle was heard, as the pleasant smell of caramelization diffused into the kitchen area. The girl climbed up, and then sat on the counter. "It was neat." Her stoic expression shifted to a pleasant smile. "That's so? I heard you guys got a new friend. What do you think of her?" he asked as he began sprinkling shredded cheese over the omelet, then folding it. He split the rolled-up omelet in half, and pulled out some plates, and placed 3 pairs of toast on each plate. A spatula was then used to lift the eggs, and lower them onto their respective plates. "She's okay, I guess, Naya," she responded, moving to retrieve cups from one of the upper cupboards. She easily caught a carton of milk tossed by the blonde. She opened it up and filled both glasses before yeeting it back to its sender, who caught it and put it back in the fridge. She got off the counter, handed him his milk, and moved to sit in front of the television once more. Naruto had somehow disconnected her game without her noticing. Everyone in the peerage had long since given up on finding out how Naruto did certain things. They had accepted that it was beyond them, and left it at that. They had their breakfast whilst they watched the first of the John Wick trilogy. Plates and cups were placed to the side, as Kaneko moved to sit between Naruto's legs. Naruto then proceeded to help himself to her ears, and let her tail lightly brush against his cheek. The television speaker was the only thing that could be perceived, as the two descended to a comfortable silence once more. The movie finished and Naruto cleaned up after them as Kaneko went on ahead and took a shower. He did the same, and they both dressed up casually. Kaneko wore black shorts and a white t-shirt with brown sandals. Naruto was dressed in gray shorts and a blank tank top with the Uzumaki symbol on its back. He had yellow wrist warmers and had blue Crocs. Kaneko stared at his feet blankly. "Don't judge me. They comfy as hell," he explained proudly. "Whatever. Let's get out of here, you weirdo." She shook her head as she walked out the door, and Naruto waited a few minutes before moving to the place they agreed to meet. The forest. About an hour later. It had been more than 40 minutes since Naruto arrived and started watching Kaneko practice her kata. Her skin glistened with sweat as she moved through forms, throwing jabs here and there. She went through a few more forms before stopping for a water break. Naruto tossed a towel and bottle of water, which she caught and chugged down immediately. Long gone were her shorts and t-shirt. Instead, she was dressed in black knee-length tights and a black sports bra. She wiped her lip using her forearm and turned to her companion, who was still dressed in the same way as before. "So, senpai, Nico-chan, what do you think? You showed us how knowledgeable you are in combat the other day, Naya. I want to further improve my hand-to-hand capabilities." "Who, me?" "Nah, girl, you trippin'." He got a jab to the gut for that. Okay, sorry," he chuckled, moving in to rub her scalp. He took his other hand and placed it on his chin. "Well, one problem I can see is that you don't have a sparring partner. Constantly practicing your kata is very important, but it takes away from the benefits of facing real, unpredictable opponents," he explained as he turned away from her and faced a tree. "Why else do you think Kung Fu isn't very practical? Most schools only practice form and never test out the theory, so there's a bunch of useless stuff in there." He continued elaborating before taking the strong fist stance. He beckoned her to attack him. "Oh." She looked down in thought before bouncing slightly, moving closer to the teen before feinting to the right, then throwing a straight punch from her left hand. She watched as her fist slowly approached the human, who had taken a strange stance. "He is going to parry with his hidden ha dash." Her thoughts were cut off as Naruto spun his along her arm, before delivering a solid elbow strike to her neck, whilst gripping her extended wrist, using the hand that was hidden. It wasn't enough to phase her per se, but her surprise stunned her for a moment, and that brief moment was all that was needed to close the engagement. Naruto brought his left foot forward and quickly wrapped it around her legs before pulling and tripping her. Kaneko attempted to retaliate by sending a kick, but it was caught easily, and she immediately felt herself being twisted onto her front side. Naruto quickly secured one of her arms with his right hand, whilst forcing the other to the ground with his knee. His left hand touched the nape of her neck. "Game." He got off the flustered girl, who looked at him with visible astonishment, a far cry from her typical expressionless face. "You are? Good, thanks." He got into his stance once more. "Take a page from Krav Maga. Real opponents won't follow the rules of a tournament or whatever, so do everything to kill them and stuff. Just don't use your super strength on me and stay away from the nuts, K," he advised as she got into the peekaboo boxing stance. "Yes," she nodded. This time she approached with caution, not letting her eyes leave his body. She began throwing jabs and kicks, which were easily evaded by her taller companion. He parried, leaned back, and tilted his head back, completely avoid her attacks. He then quickly moved to perform a sweeping kick, which easily avoided by backflipping. As her eyes were off him, he quickly followed up with a quick roundhouse that landed in her temple, flipping her over and causing her to tumble to the ground spectacularly. The girl got onto her knee and gave him a pout. "Backflips are best used for outmaneuvering your opponent, not dodging. They work in initiating grappling techniques or breaking out of them. This is combat, not martial arts," he chastised, taking a stance once more. "Martial arts is combat, though." She tilted her head in confusion. "Technically, yes, but martial arts tend to be very controlled in training and hence allow the freedom to do whatever moves you wish, to the point that people end up moving to impress judges and the audience. At this point, they just becoming sport, not serious combat. So it's just that. It's art." Combat, on the other hand, has no rules except winning, so there's that. He tried explaining, tripping over his words a little, trying not to repeat the messy mistake he made when he and Konohamaru exchanged futon ninjutsu. The memory made his cheeks redder than what he could force out of Hinata in bed. "You go whoosh, then slish whoosh," he explained, to which Konohamaru tilted his head in confusion. "Martial artists would drag your cheek for that, Naya." The girl giggled as she took a stance once more. "Bitch, please, I'd like to see them try. I can body hold dojos with a hand tied behind my back. Easy," he scoffed, rolling his eyes whilst preparing to take the initiative this time. "Besides, it's not all martial arts that do that shit anyway." He shrugged before tensing his legs. He quickly charged at the girl and sent a barrage of jabs and knee attacks whilst taking care to redirect her blows and pressure her. Kaneko latched onto his wrist, but he easily broke free by twisting towards her thumb. He ducked under a roundhouse and countered with a sweeping kick, successful destabilizing her balance. She then heavily telegraphed a backflip. "Bait! I'll bite!" Naruto attempted to sweep her arms his right leg, so she would fall onto her face, but she didn't. She instead allowed one arm to be swept, to give the impression of being caught, before quickly latching on his ankle with her free hand, then using her superior strength to yank him towards her before bringing a fist down to his crotch. Not bad. Naruto managed to move his nuts away in time, instead of receiving the blow with his psoas muscle. He then threw a punch at her face which she blocked as she wasn't in a position to dodge as she was still in midair. Naruto then followed up with a clean head, but before quickly getting onto his feet and judo flipping her and restraining the girl with relative ease. She looked visibly frustrated by how she was done and again. Don't be sad, Nico-chan. If you didn't hold yourself back, I would have lost. You can be really good at fighting, but if someone's physical capabilities surpass your own significantly, then there isn't much you can. Just like kids and adults. He got off the girl and sat himself on the ground. She frowned at his statement but didn't push it. He looked at the sky. A pleasant day it certainly was. The sky's blue was like a parallel to the ocean, its vastness expanding far beyond the horizon. Tufts of white were present here and there as well, each long and soft like a bird's feather. The sun shone brightly, radiating copious amounts of heat, which were scattered and dispersed over the Earth's atmosphere, some places warmer than others, causing breezes to blow and cool the creatures that inhabited the Earth. Naruto lied down on the ground and watched the beautiful green leaves sway to and fro as they received the wind. For someone who could track extremely fast-moving objects, this was like watching a 9,000 frames per second video, except this was constantly on high definition. His photographic memory captured the trees' different phases, creating breathtaking images as shadows crawled up their barks and danced as leaves span and fell to the ground. Birds chirped, insects crawled, and rodents scurried. Naruto was in an extremely pleasant mood as he took in his surroundings. To think people would ignore you and harm you recklessly. Kaneko laid on top of him, using his chest as a pillow, and she joined him in staring at the sky blankly. You stink. That's mean, Naya. He snorted and stayed lying down. Hey, senpai. Can we stay like this forever? She asked with a slightly flushed face and twitchy ears. She leaned into his chest and moved her right hand to take his, which he reciprocated. She clutched it gently before bringing it up to her cheek. Nope, I want to go see Rias, plus my lifespan is shitty compared to yours. He responded in a dry yet amused manner. Kaneko elbowed him and pouted. Even if you never look at me, senpai, I will always be there for you when you need me, she thought as she nuzzled his hand onto her cheek. Idiot, she whispered as a smile formed on her face. She felt a familiar hand on top of her head, and she leaned into it. Her guard lowered significantly, feeling safe in his arms, and so she plummeted into the depths of Morpheus' domain. Dang it! She fell asleep. He whined internally, listening to her soft breathing. Oh well, she worked pretty hard today, so I'll just leave her. He shrugged and just let her sleep. Later that day. Hey Kiba, Issei. Naruto, what's up? Kiba gave the blonde a fist bump. Sooo dude. Issei waved lazily, not bothering to look at the blonde as his focus was. Yo, on an orb of luminescent green energy. Naruto looked at him with curiosity, but just shrugged and turned to face the Yamato Nadeshiko. Akino. Naruto greeted, allowing his eyes to roam her bombshell of a body. Oh my lord, don't tell me you are finally prepared to have an affair? The girl's cheeks were dusted pink as she used her lips seductively. Naruto stepped forward and wrapped an arm around her waist, and pulled her close, and brushed his lips against her ear. I wonder. His hot breath tickled her ear, nearly sending her over the edge. He was promptly pulled away from the young woman by a jealous Loli. Keep it in your pants, senpai, her voice chastised. Kinda funny how that's coming from the girl with dirty knees. He responded, eliciting a yelp from the girl, as her cheeks flushed for what seemed to be the 30th time that day. Boom. Era. Poor Kaneko. Yo, Issei. Keep the explosions to a minimum. You gotta cause the fauna to dip and the trees to be riddled with parasites. Naruto called out in annoyance as Kiba disappeared in a blur of speed and caught the boy who was sailing through the air. Issei flipped him off, before groaning in discomfort as he got out of Kiba's arms and extended his arm once more and began concentrating. How's he coming along, Akino? Naruto questioned, moving to stand next to his girlfriend's queen. He is doing relatively well. Not much talent, but he's making up for it with his dedication, she replied, giving details to her observation. Naruto nodded at her response and watched in silence as Issei focused on creating another orb of light. Dedication, huh? Let's fan our flames of youth together, Naruto-kun. Hua. Dynamic entry. Akino and Kaneko gave worried looks, noting the distant, despondent expression on his face. They said nothing. This was fairly normal after all. They, including Rias, felt intimidated by the prospect of asking about his past. They felt afraid that the happiness that they loved from him would crack even more. And so they waited. Yo, Issei, aggressively forcing your energy into a ball will make things harder. Coerce it, seduce it into fulfilling your desires, Naruto shouted from his position. Right. The red dragon responded as he did his best to relax and calm his tense body. Don't focus on the ball, focus on what you want, Naruto added, adding a line that seemed to counter the previous line. Issei was confused at first, but he eventually started to come around. He could understand what Naruto was trying to say to some extent. He didn't hear Akino correcting the blonde, so he listened and focused on the spherical shape at the center of his mind. This continued for what seemed to be an eternity until, "Good job, kid, you can. Finally, do your dragon. Ha 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 ha. PFFTT. Wave." The blonde snickered, making Issei's eye twitch. "Screw you." Issei threw the orb in a random direction, and a loud and fairly large explosion followed, causing the observer's eyes to widen in shock. Akino quickly moved to shield Naruto from potential debris falling on him. "Not bad. More kick than a typical fireball jutsu, but much slower," Naruto analyzed, watching the dust settle and fragments of bark and clumps of earth fall to the ground. Naruto's jaw then tightened as his eye begins twitching. "Hey, user. What did I say about the explosions? Wanna fight, you little shit? Don't care about your rip-off ki blast. I'm gonna drag your cheek. Whoa man, Cal Arg." Issei's face was kicked by a croc, sending the devil to the ground. "Kuoh," he thought as rolled away from a stomp in an undignified manner. Naruto moved to grapple the boy and successfully latched onto his arm. Naruto then pulled Issei off the ground and judo flipped him before tilting his head, dodging a straight kick to his face. Naruto latched onto his foot into Issei's foot, then tugged, pulled the devil to him before landing a clean blow to his hamstring. Issei's eyes widened as he felt the blow land on his hamstring. His hands flailed as he began using his other foot to attempt to force the blonde to let go of his foot. He was successful, but he knew Naruto wasn't done with him, so he tried to distance himself. The three spectators sighed as they watched the scuffle. "Hey, Akino, could you teach me how to make Narutomaki?" Kaneko requested, turning to her sister figure. "Of course." Akino nodded before turning to Kiba. "Kiba, do you mind running by the store? We're running low of sauces." "Of course." Kiba nodded. And so they left. Issei tumbled to the ground before rising in a fluster, then narrowly dodged a punch to the face by diving to the side. Naruto sent a series of jabs at Issei, not even giving the boy time to protest, as he was forced to focus on the kicks and punches being sent his way. Naruto didn't really seem upset, plus it was clear he could have knocked Issei out at any point or even actually injured him, but he didn't. It seemed like Naruto was evaluating him and his capabilities, with how Naruto would not only challenge him physically but forced him to think of ways to escape. Him attacking from out of nowhere was strange, but Issei believed that Naruto would never attack him for something like that, so he decided to play along and do his best. As the fight went on, Issei began realizing how much he sucked at hand-to-hand combat. Throughout the fight, there were moments where he felt that he was starting to be good and attempted to evade by tilting his head. His face was smacked every time he tried. He couldn't throw a proper punch nor defend himself from one. Issei realized once more how much work it would take to be a powerful devil. The fight soon ended with Naruto winning by landslide, and so to rest they sat on the forest floor. "I can't help but feel that our time of peace is gonna be a distant memory soon." Naruto sighed and turned to Issei. "I hope you realize how lacking you are," said Naruto as he let his gaze bore into Issei, who looked down, feeling slightly discouraged. "Yeah, I'm pretty bad." The perverted sighed as he looked at his hand and formed a tight knuckle. "Well, as long as you keep going at it, you won't suck forever. But seriously, dude, I've seen babies that fight better than you," Naruto expressed with a disappointed tone, causing Issei to cry dramatically. "That's not nice at all, you bastard," he hissed in annoyance. "Being nice is for losers," Naruto stated boisterously, earning a blank stare from the Red Dragon Emperor. "Anyway, how's that wanking hand of yours doing?" he asked, staring at Issei's left hand with mild curiosity. "It could be worse," the boy shrugged, ignoring the healing cuts and burns that covered it. "It will be worse with what I'm planning to put myself through, though," he added in a rather discouraged tone, causing Naruto's curiosity to increase. The look Naruto gave asked for an explanation, and so Issei went on. "My sacred gear allows me to double my power at the cost of my stamina, and the number of times I can boost is also limited by how much my body can handle. So one of the steps to realize its true potential is to greatly increase my body's strength." "Oh, makes sense." Naruto nodded with a smile. "Hey, Naru. Hi, Narudisu. Bucho. She's been acting strange this morning." Akino also had this troubled look on her face when she was talking Bucho as well, he explained while scratching the back of his head. "Like her mind was elsewhere, even when I tried talking to her. She did stuff like sipping at her cup even when it was empty, walking into closed doors, repeated tasks she already did, and staring at what looked like a picture of you in alarm," he continued, causing his posture to slouch and shoulders to relax. Naruto's eyes widened a bit. "Oh? I'm surprised there are other things you can think of besides boobs," he chuckled spiritlessly. His jaw tightened and his brow furrowed as he brushed his hair back, exposing a bit of his forehead. "What's gotten into her?" he thought as he looked at Issei. Got it. I'll take care of your big sis, he promised with a small smile, which prompted Issei to nod in satisfaction. Now run along now, kiddo. Remember to do your homework. Naruto shoot Issei. Hey, what the use? For the goddamn OUCH. Last time, we were the same age, moron. And practice what you preach. Issei complained as he got onto his feet, moving his hands to brush off the fragments of grass on his pants. He turned. Naruto was long gone. He is as quick a sprinter, but wait. Didn't he tell me Akino taught him magic? Wait. Issei shivered at the thought of what Akino could have taught their sociopath. No. 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 He chanted as he stumbled away, not noticing a pair of blue eyes watching him from atop one of the trees. Yar yar. He cursed under his breath before carefully climbing down the tree and walking towards his home. Later, it had been some time since Naruto arrived in his apartment. He had gotten himself to relax over a cup of instant ramen and orange juice while watching a World War II documentary. It troubled him a lot. Naruto just couldn't understand why he couldn't bring himself to tell Rias everything about himself, his origins and his power. Perhaps it was the fear that Rias would forget about him and only remember the power he possessed like most other people from his world. He felt a great weight in his heart that was in likeness with a sea bird that had its wings covered in oil. He felt guilty that he was doubting the one who gave him hope, love, and a home. Something he valued greatly, as he grew up without those things leading to him being clingy to his precious ones. Perhaps he felt that in the presence of an extremely powerful being would make her go lax, relying on him all the way. He found that appealing, but he knew it was poison. He vividly remembered Sakura's death to this day, which was caused by her being too relaxed and relying on Sasuke. Naruto knew very well that there were beings in this world that are capable of not only standing up to him, but defeating him as well. He too was growing lax in a way. His skills rusted heavily after not experiencing true combat for several years. His ability to manipulate his power also probably weakened, as he didn't use any form of chakra over the years as well. He was just a normal human after all. Another possibility was the severe guilt he felt from failing to save both his lovers. One fell to the hand of a student who was under the same master, his brother in a sense, and the other to a rampant false god. Hinata was an incredibly kind girl who taught him to show consideration for other people that were not of value to him. She taught him the values of how doing small things for other people went a long way by using him as an example. He couldn't comprehend what she tried teaching him at first, but was able to grasp it after a while, just so he could make her happier. This ended up getting warped by the will of fire, the so-called greater good. She died because of him. He chose to rush after Nagato instead of running back to the village, because he knew that Nagato escaping would lead to the deaths of millions. He did the right thing, and he regretted it. What the hell was right about that? He still lost her. She was the most important person to him, not the millions of people scattered across the globe, not the fanatics that inhabited the moon, and most definitely not the users that lived in the village he had been groomed to protect. He had a lot of potential for growth, so why didn't he use it instead of goofing around with his perverted master from time to time? If only he had been stronger, faster, and had more chakra. He probably could have had enough chakra to create and send a clone to the village, but he didn't. He couldn't. He believed that Ino too died because of his weakness. If only he had returned to the world earlier, instead of brooding like a moron. He promised her that he would return to her by the Rinne festival. He didn't. That was days before Kagaya attacked and claimed the lives of many. Naruto didn't just hate himself, he hated the power he had gained, which was useless to him when it mattered the most. People always worshipped him as the heroic god of destruction or the golden god of heroes. Every time Naruto heard that, he'd just tell himself, if such a guy exists, won't he come and wash my pain? The person the populace described didn't exist in his eyes. He was just a fluke. He felt that it was a mistake that the person that they described should replace him. He would be called a hero numerous times, but that didn't matter to him. That was not him. He could never consider himself a hero because he failed to save the ones he loved. He didn't deserve the power, so he put it away, locking it away with his family's secret arts, so that the pain of having it, the curse that robbed him of his identity and burdened him with a responsibility he was obliged to adhere to, the curse that would never be enough when it's needed the most. He didn't deserve the beauties of the world, so he locked himself away, hiding away in a tiny bedroom and never allowing himself to see the outside and practice the values instilled to him by his deceased lover. He hated the world that would set him up and remind him that working hard won't guarantee anything. He no longer had anything to look forward to, as he knew the world would keep challenging him over and over again to take everything he loved from. He could destroy it, but then it would take him with it, along with the lives of a myriad of people who had nothing to do with his problems. Moving forward was too hurtful. He was a failure as a shinobi. He failed to endure. He thought it was over and believed he had exhausted every chance of being happy, and tried giving up. But still, he hoped. He called out to the world, but no one answered him. He was alone once more. Just like how the power he grinded for created a rift between him and his friends. To attain the power to protect them ended up pushing them away from him. What was to say that the power he locked up wouldn't do the same to him and Rias? This was one of the moments where Naruto had a great deal of hatred for himself. It was simple really, unlock the seal, and get rid of all that brings darkness into her heart. He couldn't. He just couldn't. He released a labored sigh, turned off the screen, and tossed the empty cup into the can before washing the glass cup. He put everything away, went to his room, and just plopped down onto his bed. His attention became arrested by a very familiar circle, riddled with ancient runes, which had appeared before him and released a crimson light. Naruto! His girlfriend appeared and immediately tackled him onto his bed, nuzzling into him. Naruto's eyes widened in mild surprise, not by her tackling him, but at how she reached down, caressed his member through his shorts. Rias! He spoke firmly, latching onto her wrist, immobilizing her arm. Rias flinched at the harsh tone, and stifling moved her head to look into his eyes. She knew very well that when he used that tone, he wouldn't accept any form of trickery. She could it. He could see right through her, and he didn't like it when she lied to him. Moisture welled in her eyes, and she immediately latched onto his frame. Naruto! That's my name! Naruto! Yes! Still Naruto! He pulled her into his chest and gently stroked her long, luscious crimson hair, whispering sweet things in her ears. Rias smiled through her tears and pulled herself away from his embrace. She was sure now. Naruto! I want you to take my pure with zero body quantity. I can't explain right now, but all I can say is that I love you. I am certain that I want you and you alone, she proclaimed with copious amounts of affection. She pressed her lips onto his and allowed herself to be pulled into his embrace once more. His hand made its way to the back of her head and pushed her face closer to his. With his free hand, he latched onto one of her large, bountiful watermelons, then squeezed and kneaded, eliciting a whimper from the devil. Said hand then moved to her cleavage and slowly drew a line from her watermelon to her diaphragm, to her belly button, before gently rubbing her pelvis. Didi, don't play with me, you idiot. Just go for it. Go for it. She shivered, feeling his hot breath on the nape of her neck. The hand that was on her head slid down to the back of her neck before drawing a semicircle around it, before stopping at the button that helped multiple others keep her shirt on. Click 1, click 2. Oh, Satan! As Naruto worked to undress her, Rias promptly used her magic to remove all of his clothing to keep the sense of urgency. He had to hurry, or else time would be lost. He obliged and turned her to his bed. His hand plunged into her honey pot, causing her to squirm. Rias let a sensual whimper, encouraging Naruto, who was carpet bombing her collar with kisses, moving down to her toned stomach. His hands then moved up, groped and fondled her bountiful watermelons. Fine, he thought as he worked for his hands on her large tits before allowing her pink, hardened areola to slip in between his middle and index finger. He leaned forward and used her buds, causing her to arc her back in response, shivering in pleasure as he moved to suck her teats. Her dripping snatch was practically drooling as he rubbed his hardened member between her labia, teasing her clit. He then stopped suckling on her boob and cheek-halted her neck with kisses. His hand then went down, rubbed her plump cheek, grabbing it and pulling her closer before moving his lips close to her ear, ceasing his paralysis-inducing attack. Rias, before I do this, I just want to ask and make sure. Am I worth it? Are you sure you want to lose that to me? He asked with a hint of nervousness. Rias strengthened her resolve and stared right into his crystal-like blue eyes, with slight tear droplets forming at the corner of her eyes. Naruto, I love you. I'm obsessed with you. You are the only one I could think of. I want to give you everything I can because you gave everything you could to me, she cried, wrapping her arms around his neck. He winced slightly, feeling guilt as his reluctance had caused her eyes to water up. He really needed to trust her more. You saw me for me and accepted even my weirdest tastes. You laughed, cried, and talked with me. You got mad at me. You showed me how beautiful the human world could be, and you gave me everything I have ever wanted, and it's so unfair. And. Her tiny pinprick tears became waterfalls, cascading from her eyes. From the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. The stream that had been her love had flooded the banks and caused the valley it was in to collapse, inhibiting what she was trying to say. The water welled up and worked to overcome the obstacle before it. You gave me everything, so I'm giving you this is the very least I can do. So I tell you, Uzumaki Naruto, my first love, you may do whatever you want with me. Fulfill your most disgusting and twisted fantasies. Use me in any manner you wish. I won't resist. Use my body as if you'll never see it again, she announced firmly. The last part alarmed Naruto to a great deal, such that he froze in shock at the implications. His hair covered his eyes, hiding them from the world as he did something he hadn't done since his childhood, his lover's deaths, and meeting Rias for the first time. Cry. Understood. He whispered hoarsely, knowing that he couldn't do anything that involved devil affairs. He may have had the power, but stepping in would cause Rias problems, and those problems could end up harming their friends. He was extremely capable in combat, but he couldn't be everywhere at the same time. Even if he sent clones, they could still be killed. He knew that with the way devils typically act, there would be bloodshed if he acted. This bloodshed will then cause a moment of weakness, which will likely cause other factions to attack weakened devils. That wouldn't do at all, because despite what her parents and house had put her through, he knew that she still loved them. Her brother was the great demon lord Lucifer, and so it was a given that he would join battles. Naruto's past experience told him that no matter how powerful someone is, they can still be killed if the right approach is used. Just like one of his shinobi god predecessors, Senju Hashirama. That didn't matter right now. The issue was his power, and the potential repercussions of using it to save her. His status as a human would guarantee that their lives could never be peaceful again, as various factions such as the Angel faction would attempt to recruit him into their ranks or try to eliminate him, because a human like him being affiliated with devils would cause issues with the believers. Then, there was his guilt. For her, he was willing to release his seal, and use the power he considered a curse after all. She was far more important than his pathetic little guilt trip and his secrets. Hiding that power wouldn't be an option if she was in danger, yet here he was. He felt the same sense of hopelessness he felt when watching Kakashi fight Zabuza, watching Sakura die, watching Sasuke receive the curse mark, watching Itachi overwhelm Sasuke, fighting Kimimaro, and the list goes on and on. Such was the life of a shinobi after all. This time he wouldn't fail. He would cherish this time he has, and use it to the best of his abilities. He grabbed her from under her knees, and hoisted her up before slapping her plump posterior, causing her to whimper in discomfort and pleasure. He let go of her and glared, cheek-hurting dominance. On your knees, bitch! I want to see that fine cheek of yours, he commanded, causing her cheeks to redden in embarrassment, but she complied with, yes, my lord. She then shook her cheek, causing it to jiggle and further arouse the boy behind her. Naruto reached out and grabbed her hips, and immediately buried his tool deep into her soaked honey pot. On! She whined, wincing at the stinging pain that signified that her purity had been taken. It's an honor, Rias Gremory. The overwhelming pride he felt alleviated the depression seated at his heart. He took a moment to appreciate the extremely warm, most and tight cave his member had filled up. They were one. They felt an instinctual connection forming between them, one that allows them to communicate with the slightest of gestures. Naruto was a former shinobi. He could read her perfectly, but her body language added further clarity. Rias cried out in great pain and discomfort as she began forcing her hips to move, thrusting them up and down, causing her great pain. It had only been 3 seconds since he entered her kitty. That's so good, she cried out, but Naruto wasn't fooled one bit. She sure as hell wasn't masochistic, and he could tell simply by reading her body. While her hips were thrusting themselves back and forth, the rest of her body seemed to be trying to escape, like a frog being thrown into boiling water. Don't lie to me. It was clear to him that this was an act of punishing herself. He couldn't let her do that to herself. He turned her so she could be in the missionary position, before grabbing her shoulders and pushing her deep into the bed, whilst thrusting deeper into her bloody snatch, effectively immobilizing her. The aggression with which he did it caused her body to freeze. She had been found out again. Once her body had stopped moving, he wrapped his right arm around her frame and pulled her closer to him, allowing her to feel his hot breath on her ears. His left hand then trailed down her stomach and finally reached her clit, which he immediately began stimulating in hopes of alleviating her. His member was large, and so it wasn't suited for a pure with 0 body counts. Rias doing that to herself could have traumatized her, and this was her first time. Losing one's pure self with 0 body quantity to someone they loved was important in the world he was in, and so he did his best to make it as special as possible. I don't want you hurting yourself. You've suffered enough, he whispered. Just let her go, relax and enjoy, he continued before gently nibbling on her lobe, drawing a soft whimper from her. She nodded slightly and stayed in that position for a moment, taking a moment to let the pain fade. Its tenseness faded with the pain, and she didn't have to tell him to move. He already knew, and so he slowly rocked his hips, drawing a whimper from the devil. She wrapped her legs around his waist, as he slowly started increasing the tempo, with her whimpers increasing along with it. He abruptly moved his left hand to play with her buds, forcing her to raise her voice. Yes, use me. Make me yours, pinch them, she explained, as her watermelons were skillfully manipulated by the boy. Her whimpers of approval made his hands work in a hard, feverish manner in tweaking her buds. Damn! You feel amazing, he groaned as he felt her walls massaging his member, encouraging him to thrust with more force. This persisted for a few minutes until he heard Rias whimpering. "Juice, I know, hang on a bit longer, Kay?" he replied before ceasing his other ministrations so as to prolong her time. "I'll try," she screamed as leapt up and wrapped her arms around her neck, making him carry her as he thrust upward. Obscene, smacking sounds flooded the room, only being overpowered by the devil's whimpers and the human's grunting. He raised his hand and brought it down on her cheek, eliciting a yelp that contained both pain and pleasure. He chanted, "You like that, huh?" in a hushed voice whilst she tightened her grip, making sure to limit it to what a typical human can handle. He brought his face close, and she immediately pressed her lips onto his and shoved her tongue into his mouth, attempting to dominate for once. She couldn't. But she loved it. Their lips separated, only being connected by a line of saliva. "Good girl. I am about to juice." His hot breath tickled her neck, causing her to lose control. "Oh, Satan!" she screamed as her walls clamped down on his member, which caused it to twitch and release a glob of juice. She collapsed into his chest as he pulled out, causing her to whimper at the loss of length. Naruto placed her back onto the bed and watched as her gaping hole dripped his juice. He was one of the few without a refractory period, so he remained hard as he ate up her form. He had given her the first time, but now it was time to move on to her other statement. He turned her onto her stomach and made her raise her hips before plunging his fingers into her juice-soaked kitty. "Naruto, please wait. I'm still sensitive." "Wait. No. Hey!" She was ignored as he scooped up more juice and let it rest on his hand before plunging his member back into her snatch. "On!" Her sensitive body tried jerking away from him, but it was far too late. His left arm had already secured her and prevented her from jumping away. The sounds of cheeks being heavily clapped filled the room once more. "Ah! Ah! Ah! Stupid Naru! I'll get you 2 dishes." Her words slurred as he crammed as much of his member as he could into her, with no success, as a few inches were out of her kitty. She felt like her gut was being punched as the boy plowed into her hole with the aggressiveness of a Spartan. Naruto slid his right hand in between her cheeks and lathered her back door with juice. Rias didn't panic as she knew this would happen because of the contents of the pornos he thought she didn't know about, but she did know about them. "Gee, gimme your F-finger," she managed to choke out. It was in front of her, and she spat on it, and a red magic circle appeared around it. Naruto watched in fascination as his pointer fingers seemed to produce lubrication, but didn't watch long, and got to work on prepping her for the next stage. If her sensitive body wasn't being ruthlessly used, she would have felt a cold, viscous fluid invading her colon. Instead, she wondered how he was able to keep such a high-thrusting pace, whilst working on her anus. It was beyond her, so she didn't question it. She tried not screaming in pleasure, as he wrecked her booty and smashed her G-spot. Naruto felt her cheek getting used to, and adjusting his index finger, and so he inserted his middle finger then his ring before spreading them repeatedly, loosening her up. "I'm going out," she whimpered as a clear fluid exploded out her flower, causing her to arch her back in pleasure. Naruto smiled as he pulled out of her flower, causing more fluid semen to flow out. He got onto the bed and crouched above her, placing his head close to her rosebud. "Wait," she whined. "Let me rest first, you brute," she continued, regretting telling him to do as he wished. Denied. She held back a scream as she felt his member slowly sink into her bowel. "Oh! Oh! On!" she vocalized her discomfort whilst pushing her cheek up to fully consume his rod. The feeling of anal was completely alien to her and was painful, but not to the point that she'd jump away from him. She mentally encouraged herself to hang on, as surely there a limit to his seemingly limitless endurance. "Hell," she whimpered, swirling her hips, feeling his girthy rod reach her deepest parts with ease. "You freaking tight, oh dang. Can't underestimate you devils and your erotic bodies. I wonder what fallen angels feel like," he groaned, ignoring the withering glare she sent at him. He abruptly pulled out, leaving only the tip outside her cheek before plunging in with Herculean force, causing the bed to collapse. He thrust it into her incredibly tight cheek, loving every moment of it. He enjoyed watching it expand and contracted as he thrust it into it. Ria's tightness clamped onto him, signifying that she was about to juice again. He too was coming close, so he released his final shot. "Arg!" before letting him fall beside her. He could have easily continued. After all, Hinata was a crazy nymphomaniac that required both he and Ino to gang up on her in order to satisfy her during the early stages of their relationship. He eventually got used to it and grew to outlast them both. Good times. Naruto used his arm to cradle to painting Rias, giving her a warm smile. "So, how was it?" "It was great at the start. Until you went crazy on me, you dumb brute." She pouted cutely, turning her flushed face away from his. "Well?" While in the spooning position, He lifted one of her legs and slipped his member into her flower, and slowly thrust it, earning a low whimper from the girl. "You naughty boy," she chastised, but didn't move to stop him from pleasing himself. "No! I can do this later. We still have an issue at hand." "Rias." Naruto paused, pulling out and turning her to make eye contact with him. If there is a problem, let's talk about it. What's wrong?" He spoke in a halting and shy manner, like a person who was afraid of the answer they were going to receive. She gained a downhearted expression and pulled into an embrace, her arms shaking as they wrapped around his being. Her hold was possessive by nature, as he could tell that she was desperately trying to hold back the devil strength she possessed. The strength that could pop him. He felt a wetness on his chest, hearing silent whimpers which his enhanced could make out. I'm sorry. He didn't have the time to think logically about what that could mean. He instead did both what he desired and what he was obliged to do. He just held her close and didn't utter a word, both physically and mentally. He reached for his sheets and tossed them over to cover their naked forms. Sometime later, Rias stirred from her slumber. Her side was much warmer than usual, and turned her to see a familiar mop of blonde hair. He was holding on to her tightly, as if she was going to be taken away from him. A pained look made its way onto her face, marring the face that normally had a pleasant expression. It was quite unlike her, and she knew it, but she couldn't help it as she was about to commit the worst act in her life. A red magic circle appeared on her palm, and she slowly raised it to his forehead with shaky hands. Her eyes watered up as she felt herself getting paralyzed by extreme guilt, but she felt that this had to be done. It's for his own, she convinced herself. It's for his own good. It's for his own good. It's for his own good. Is it? As she sunk into her thoughts, the floor of his room erupts into a blinding light. Rias' eyes widened as she felt bloodlust rolled off in waves from the figure about to emerge from the circle. It wasn't directed at her, but rather at the heavy sleeper beside her. Naruto's eyes opened, slowly moving his hand to retrieve the sword carefully hidden between the bed and its nightstand. The sword was a double jin, which had a grip that resembled a snake opening its jaw. The Kusanagi no Tsurugi. His body was ready to move at a moment's notice, so he could quickly evacuate Rias and intercept the enemy. He knew Rias was awake, so he would have her distract the enemy, whilst he grabbed his sword so he could draw his blood. One of the requirements for his seal to be released. Rias raised a magic circle that protected Naruto from a shard of ice before sending hostility towards Grafia. This was my choice, she punctuated, glaring at the person who had appeared, causing their killing intent to waver slightly. The person took note of how Rias took care as to not release her power in consideration of the human that had dared to defile her. The person paused, then took a moment to scan the room, and there it was. Though it had a concealing spell over it, they as an ultimate class devil could easily see past it. A picture of her husband's little sister, with a man lying down beside her. They both looked younger than they were at the moment, and were both cosplaying as characters from one of the human world's most popular animated series, Attack on Titan. Rias' smile on her face, as the boy had his arm wrapped around her waist, in an affectionate manner spoke volumes about their relationship. Her desire to kill diminished, and so did Naruto's hand inching toward his sword. I see, responded a voice that had the clarity of a bell. She could piece together what was going on now. Rias? What's going on? He feigned waking up, but didn't fake the yawn, as he really was asleep, which made it all the more convincing. Neither of them caught on to his act. I'm sorry. I love you, Rias whispered, before getting on her knees and kissing his forehead. Before he could ask what she meant, a magic circle appeared on her palm, and she promptly pushed it into his forehead. Rias, wait! He managed to say before plummeting into a void. It was a feeling he was very familiar with, as he had a Yamanaka girlfriend. He got caught because he let his guard down, and now he was paying for it. He was nearly as defenseless to supernatural suggestion as normal humans, because his chakra wasn't around to shield his mind. Rias, don't go! He couldn't cry out. Rias' legs lost strength, and so she collapsed onto her knees before grabbing his slumbering body. I will love, remember and cherish you for the rest of my days, she whispered before planting a kiss onto his forehead. Using magic, she immediately cleansed herself of any fluid that stuck to her skin, then changed into her school uniform. She turned and gave her brother's maid a look that combined being worn out, apologetic and despondent. She tried to hold a poker face, but couldn't. She could feel her world caving in, and so the dam broke. Sniffle. Rias was pulled into a warm embrace. I don't know who he is, but this was for the best, she comforted. I will do everything in my power to make sure this information is not leaked, she continued, moving her hand to stroke Rias' hair whilst giving the girl a soft look.